My suitcase was standing beside the front door when I came in from the garage. It was the brown one with the bad wheel, which told me Diane had packed it. I always used the blue suitcase because dragging that brown thing through an airport sounded like pushing a shopping cart over gravel. Diane stood at the kitchen sink with both hands pressed to the counter. She wasn't washing anything. The faucet wasn't running. "What's the suitcase for?" I asked. She looked at the clock above the stove. Valerie texted. "They crossed into Ohio 20 minutes ago." I didn't ask where Valerie was. I know, her family was supposed to arrive at 5:30. It was 4:15. Diane turned around. Her eyes were swollen, but her makeup was fresh. That combination usually meant she'd been crying, repaired herself, then cried again. "Martin, I need you to leave before they get here." For a second, I honestly thought she meant the house. "Go pick up ice. Move my truck so Ross could fit his ridiculous SUV in the driveway. Something ordinary." "Leave for where?" "I don't know. A hotel. Luke's, just for now." I bent and opened the suitcase. My blood pressure pills were tucked into one of my shoes. She had packed 6 shirts, 4 pairs of pants, my shaving kit, and the frame photograph from my nightstand. That photograph was 38 years old. "How long is just for now?" She folded her arms tightly across herself. "Until we get Mom's house cleared, that's 6 weeks, maybe longer." The refrigerator motor clicked off. In the sudden quiet, I could hear the cheap clock above the stove counting away 1 second at a time. I closed the suitcase. "You packed my medication," I said. "I didn't want you to forget it. You thought I might forget the pills I take every morning, but you remembered the picture beside my bed." Diane looked toward the living room, as if someone there might help her answer. The house had never seemed especially large to me, but she made it look enormous by refusing to meet my eyes. "It's not only about Valerie and Ross staying here," she said. "No? I need some space. You've got 2,200 square feet. Please don't do that." "Do what? Make a joke so I sound ridiculous." I hadn't been joking. That was probably worse. 3 months earlier, Diane's mother, June, had died at 87 in the pale green bedroom of a hospice center in Kettering. She went on a Tuesday morning, while Diane was downstairs arguing with a vending machine. I was sitting beside June when her breathing changed. One moment she was there, irritated because the blanket was tucked too tightly around her feet. And the next moment, the room felt like a place she had already left. Diane blamed herself for missing it. I told her June hadn't been alone. That was meant to comfort her, but grief can turn a kind sentence around until it finds a sharp edge. What Diane heard was that I had been there, and she hadn't. Valerie arrived from North Carolina the following afternoon, wearing white pants and carrying a gift basket for the hospice nurses. Ross drove up from Nashville 2 days later and spent most of his first evening telling us how many calls he'd canceled to be there. They love their mother. I never doubted that. They just loved her in a way that required other people to handle the inconvenient parts. For the last 3 years, I had been one of those other people. June's gutters, her prescriptions, her furnace filter, the jar lids she swore had been tightened by some factory bully. Those became my department. She and I got along because neither of us expected gratitude to be a daily event. She'd call and say, "The downstairs toilet is making a criminal noise," and I'd say, "I'll bring a wrench." Diane came whenever she could, but she still worked 3 days a week at the dental office and had never learned to tell Valerie no. If Valerie called during one of June's appointments, Diane would stand in the hallway for 40 minutes, reassuring her that everything was under control. I would sit beside June while she whispered loud enough for the entire waiting room to hear, "Your wife is talking to the daughter, who isn't here about the mother who is." June could be mean in very accurate ways. After the funeral, Valerie announced that the 3 siblings should clear their mother's house together. Not hire anyone, not divide the work, but gather under one roof and honor the process. Ross liked the phrase so much he used it 4 times over lunch. The plan began as 10 days in September. Then Ross decided he could work remotely and stay longer. Valerie said it would be healing not to rush. Her husband, Paul, apparently had no vote or had learned not to display one. By the end of August, they were coming for 6 weeks. I found that out when Diane bought a second set of guest towels. 6 weeks? I'd asked. She had been cutting the tags off them at the kitchen table. "It may not take that long. It won't if they sleep at your mother's house. There's too much dust. The dust doesn't care who sleeps there." She gave me a look. "They're my family." "I know who they are, Diane. Their names have been appearing on our towels for years. That one had almost made her smile. Almost. We talked it through that night. At least, I believed we had. Valerie and Paul could take the guest room for 10 days. Ross could use the pullout in the den. They could stay longer if they moved to a hotel or June's house. My workshop would remain a workshop, not become the processing center for whatever Ross hoped to sell online. Diane agreed. Then Valerie called the next morning. By dinner, our agreement had become something I had forced on Diane while she was vulnerable. Now my packed suitcase sat beside the door, and I understood how much that phone call had changed. "Did Valerie tell you to do this?" I asked. Diane's face tightened. "Of course you'd think that. I'm asking. She helped me see that I'm allowed to need something. Apparently you need my side of the closet." "This isn't about a closet. No, it's about a garage. I said your brother couldn't take it over for 6 weeks, and now I'm the one being stored somewhere else. He's trying to settle Mom's estate. He's trying to photograph her furniture against my clean walls because he thinks it'll sell better. You always make him sound cheap. Ross once asked me if he could return a sympathy wreath for store credit. He was upset. So was the florist." Diane pressed her lips together. Under different circumstances, she would have laughed. She wanted to. I saw it happen, a small betrayal in her face, and then she remembered what side she was on. "You don't understand what it's like when my family is here," she said. "I understand exactly what it's like. I change the sheets, inflate the mattress, fix Paul's shower because he twists the handle like he's opening a submarine hatch, and spend a week pretending Ross doesn't look through our cabinets. You go quiet. That helps. No, Martin, it doesn't. You sit there saying nothing, and everybody knows what you think." I pulled out one of the kitchen chairs and sat down. My legs had started to feel unreliable, which annoyed me. The human body has terrible timing. What do I think? That they're selfish, that I'm weak, that you're the only adult in the room. I've never said you were weak. You don't have to say things. That's the problem. She moved to the table, but didn't sit across from me. She stood behind the other chair with her fingers curled over its back. For 40 years, I had thought of my silence as restraint. My father had been a loud man, especially when drinking and sometimes when not. He could turn a burned pork chop into a referendum on everybody's character. When Diane and I married, I promised myself I would never make a woman watch my face to find out whether the evening was safe. It had not occurred to me that being unreadable could become its own kind of weather. "I thought I was giving you room," I said. "Sometimes it feels like you leave the room while you're still standing in it." That landed because it wasn't entirely false. I looked down at the table. There were faint semicircles in the wood, where June had once set down a hot casserole dish without a trivet. I had refinished the table twice and left those marks both times. Diane said they belonged to the family history. Apparently I did not. "What does this have to do with me leaving today?" I asked. "I can't grieve with everyone watching to see how you react." Everyone meaning Valerie and Ross. Ross can't tell when milk is spoiled unless somebody circles the date. See? What? You do that? You reduce people to one foolish thing they did. That man has had 61 years to generate a larger sample. Martin. Her voice cracked on my name. She sat down then, quickly, like the strength had gone out of her knees. "I don't know who I am right now," she said. "Mom is gone. The house has to be emptied. Valerie says I've spent my entire life managing everybody else's feelings," Valerie says. I knew you'd focus on that, because every third sentence starts with her name. Diane rubbed both hands over her face, smearing whatever she had done to repair her makeup. Without it, she looked older and more familiar. "I'm asking for 6 weeks. "No. You're asking me to leave my home so the people who barely visited your mother can feel comfortable sorting her possessions. They're my brother and sister. I have been married to you longer than you lived with either one of them. That doesn't mean I have to choose." I glanced at the suitcase. "Looks like you did." The doorbell rang. Diane jumped. I stayed seated. "They're early," she whispered. The bell rang again, followed by 3 cheerful knocks. Valerie always knocked after ringing, as if the bell might not have conveyed sufficient personality. Diane stared at me. "Can you go through the garage?" It was such a small request. That was the cruelty of it. She didn't tell me to climb out a bathroom window or hide in the trunk of my car. She simply wanted me to use the other door so her family wouldn't have to see the husband she had packed away. I stood and took the suitcase by its handle. The bad wheel caught sideways against the tile. At the front door, Ross called, "Anybody alive in there?" Diane moved toward him, but I put my hand on the doorknob first. "Martin, please." "You can ask me to leave," I said quietly. "You don't get to say I abandoned you." Then I opened the door. Valerie stood on the porch holding a white bakery box. Ross was behind her with 2 canvas bags looped over one shoulder. Paul waited near the driveway, studying his phone with the concentration of a man who had survived 37 years of marriage by always having an email to answer. Valerie's smile flickered when she saw my suitcase. "Well," she said, "this is awkward." Ross looked from me to Diane. "You going somewhere?" Diane opened her mouth. I waited. The seconds stretched until even Ross understood that the answer mattered. "I'm giving Diane the space she asked for," I said. Valerie's eyes moved to her sister, and something passed between them. Not surprise, exactly. Confirmation. She stepped aside to let me through. "I think that's very loving of you, Martin." I dragged the suitcase down the porch steps. The broken wheel knocked against each one. Behind me, Diane said my name once. I kept walking because if I turned around, I might have carried the suitcase back inside. And for the first time in 40 years, I wasn't willing to make her decision easier just because it hurt me too. I got the suitcase into the bed of my truck and had to move Ross's SUV before I could back out. He had parked diagonally across the driveway, though there were no other cars there. Ross didn't park so much as abandon a vehicle at the approximate end of a trip. His keys were still in his hand. He tossed them to me from the porch. "Careful with the transmission," he said. I looked at the SUV, which was 18 months old, then at my truck, which had enough rust beneath the doors to qualify as ventilation. I'll try not to frighten it. Under ordinary circumstances, Ross would have laughed. Instead, he glanced toward Valerie to see whether he had permission. She was touching Diane's arm and murmuring something. Paul had carried the bakery box inside. Nobody asked where I planned to sleep. I moved the SUV to the curb, returned Ross's keys, and left. At the end of our street, I stopped at the red light beside St. Matthew's Church. The parking lot was empty except for a landscaping truck and a man in a sun hat, blowing leaves into a pile the wind kept undoing. He looked calm about it. Maybe he understood that some jobs weren't meant to be finished. The light turned green. I drove through it without knowing where I was going. Luke lived 25 minutes north, but I did not want to appear on his doorstep carrying a suitcase his mother had packed. Our son was 38, divorced, and proud of the fact that his condominium contained exactly one decorative object, a black ceramic bowl Rebecca had given him. Staying with him would involve sleeping on a leather couch directly beneath a framed photograph of the Cincinnati skyline. The photograph had come with the condo. Rebecca lived closer, but she would take one look at my face and call her mother before I got both feet through the door. Our daughter believed in immediate conversation, the way some people believed in emergency surgery. I drove to a motel off Miller Lane. The woman at the front desk wore red glasses on a chain and had a name tag that said Marcy. She asked whether I wanted one night or two. "I don't know." She waited. "Let's start with one, king or two queens, whichever one doesn't have a family reunion in it." Marcy looked past me toward the parking lot. "King." She handed me a key card and told me breakfast ended at 9:30. Her voice softened when she saw the suitcase wheel dragging sideways. "Elevators around the corner. I can manage stairs. I wasn't questioning your character." The room was on the 3rd floor. It had a wide bed, one desk chair, and a painting of 3 sailboats traveling in different directions. I set the suitcase on the luggage rack and sat on the edge of the mattress. My phone showed 4 missed calls. 2 were from Diane. 1 was Luke. The 4th was our home number. I stared at that last one longer than I should have. Nobody called from a house phone anymore unless they were trying to locate a cell phone or didn't know how to use one. Ross was capable of both. I opened the suitcase again. Diane had packed underwear, but no socks. The 6 shirts were all button-downs, including the blue one I wore to June's funeral. She had put my electric razor in a plastic grocery bag, then wrapped the cord carefully around it. My photograph was inside the zippered section of the lid. It showed Diane and me standing beside Lake Erie in 1988. She was wearing a yellow sweatshirt and holding her hair out of her face. I had one arm around her and a look of sunburned confidence I did not remember possessing. The photograph had been taken by a stranger. I could still hear Diane telling him, "Make sure you get the water." For years, she had laughed because he got so much water that our feet were cut off. I placed the frame on the motel desk. My phone rang again. "Luke," I answered, Dad? I'm assuming so. What happened? Your mother asked me to leave. There was a pause filled with the muted noise of a television. She said you offered to give her some space. I offered after she packed my suitcase. What do you mean, packed? Clothes, medication, your grandmother's funeral shirt, for reasons known only to God and your mother. Where are you? A motel. Which motel? I'm fine, Luke. That wasn't the question. I told him. He exhaled through his nose. Luke had done that since he was a boy, usually before saying something he considered responsible. Do you want to stay here? No. Okay, thank you. Mom's a mess. She was a mess when I left. She called me crying. I didn't. That's not what I meant. I know. Another pause. Valerie says things have been tense for a long time, he said. I looked at the sailboats. How would Valerie know? She's been talking to Mom. Valerie talks to your mother the way a radio tower talks to a car, mostly in one direction. Dad, can you not? Not what? Turn this into a contest over who's more unreasonable. There wouldn't be much suspense. He went quiet. I knew I was doing it again, using one sharp sentence to prevent a softer one from escaping. I rubbed my forehead. I'm sorry, I said. That was unfair to you. I just don't want either of you making me choose sides. Neither do I. Then go home. Your mother asked me not to be there. For 6 weeks? That was the first number. What does that mean? It means she said maybe longer. He stopped breathing for a moment, or at least stopped loudly enough that I noticed. She didn't tell me that. No. What did you do? The question was honest, which made it harder to answer. I objected to your uncle using my garage as a warehouse. That's it? I'm sure your mother has a longer version. You know what I mean? I did. Marriages did not reach suitcases because of garage space. The garage was simply where 40 years had chosen to stand. I don't know yet, I said. Luke's voice lost some of its edge. You should call her. I will. When? When I know what I can say without making things worse. You always say that. No, I usually don't say anything. That's kind of my point. Before I could answer, somebody knocked on Luke's door. I have to go, he said. Call me if you need something. I won't. I know. He hung up. I took off my shoes and lay on the bed without pulling back the cover. The mattress was softer than ours. Diane liked a firm mattress because she said soft ones folded a person in half. She had spent 3 weeks researching our current one, then sent it back because I mentioned that my shoulder hurt. At the time, I had thought that was love. It probably was. My stomach began making an argument for dinner, so I went downstairs and walked to a chain restaurant beside the motel. I sat at the bar because a table for one seemed like an announcement. The bartender asked what I wanted to drink. Coffee. At 7:30? Is it against policy? Just against sleep. I'm not planning much. He poured it anyway. I ordered a turkey sandwich and watched 2 men in polo shirts debate whether their company should change the color of its packaging. They spoke with more passion than Diane and I had brought to most of our major decisions. When my food came, my phone lit up with a message from Ross. Garage key? No hello. No question about whether I had reached wherever he assumed I was going. Just a noun. I typed, on my key ring. 3 dots appeared. Where's spare? There was a spare in the ceramic bowl beside the mudroom door. Ross had walked past it, carrying his bags. The bowl was bright orange. I started to type the answer, then deleted it. Ask Diane. A minute later, he called. I let it ring. The bartender topped off my coffee. His name was Earl, according to the receipt tucked beneath my plate. Somebody persistent? He asked. My brother-in-law. He nodded as if that explained the entire telecommunications industry. The next call came from Diane. I answered on the 4th ring. Hi, she said. We had spoken to each other almost every day for 40 years. I had heard her say hi from payphones, hospital hallways, her mother's kitchen, a broken-down car outside Indianapolis, and once from a beach in Florida after she lost sight of me for 9 minutes. I had never heard her sound like a stranger trying to determine whether I was dangerous. Hi, where are you? At dinner. Where are you staying? I told her the motel. That place by the highway? Yes, it's noisy there. I'll ask the highway to keep it down. She sighed. Martin. I'm sorry. No, you're not. No, I'm not. I heard cabinet doors opening in the background. Ross can't get into the garage, she said. So I gathered. Why didn't you leave the key? I wasn't expecting to move out when I left this morning. You didn't move out. I looked at Earl. He had gone to the other end of the bar, politely pretending not to hear. What would you call it? I asked for space. You packed my blood pressure pills. Because you need them. I needed them yesterday too. You didn't put them beside the door. She was silent. Somebody spoke near her, muffled but female. Valerie. Diane covered the phone. I could still make out the rhythm of their voices, one asking, one answering. Then Diane came back. Valerie says she'll pay for the motel. Tell Valerie I'm not an expense she can deduct from her grief. She's trying to help. Then she can sleep there. I'll come home. That's not what I meant. I know exactly what you meant. I heard her breathing change. For one unsteady second, I wanted to apologize. Tell her I loved her, drive home, unlock the garage, carry Valerie's bags upstairs, and let Ross fill every square inch of my workshop with June's furniture. I knew how to do that version of my life. I had practiced it until it required almost nothing from me. Did you tell Luke this was my idea? I asked. I told him we needed time apart. That isn't what I asked. I didn't know how to explain it. You could start with what happened. It's more complicated than that. It was simple enough when you packed. Please stop saying that. Why? Because it makes me sound cruel. I lowered my voice. I'm not making you sound like anything, Diane. I'm describing what you did. The line went quiet again. Then she said, I should go. Everyone's waiting to eat. Of course they were. June's family had gathered at my table, in my house, for a meal I was expected to miss politely. Good night, I said. Martin, I waited. She did not say come home. She did not say I love you. After several seconds, the call ended. Earl returned with the coffee pot. You want another? No, I'd like to sleep sometime before winter. Back in the room, I found a voicemail from Rebecca. Her voice was controlled, which was more alarming than if she had shouted. Dad, call me before I call Mom. I'm serious. I sat at the desk beside the old photograph and listened to the message twice. Then I turned the frame face down, not because I wanted to stop seeing Diane, but because the man beside her looked like someone who still believed love and endurance were the same thing. I called Rebecca before she could make good on the threat. She answered immediately. Tell me what happened. Hello to you too. Dad? There were people in the background, glasses clinking and a man laughing. She must have been at the restaurant where she managed private events. Rebecca could organize a dinner for 200 people while arguing with a linen company and remembering exactly which guest was allergic to walnuts. She had inherited Diane's ability to keep several emotional fires contained at once. I came in from the garage, I said. My suitcase was beside the door. Your mother asked me to leave before Valerie and Ross arrived. Asked how. I don't understand the question. Did she say, Martin, get out? Did you suggest staying somewhere else? Were you already fighting? She said, I need you to leave before they get here. Rebecca stopped speaking. I heard a door close on her end. The restaurant noise disappeared. And you left? She packed my suitcase. That isn't an answer. I wasn't going to stand in the doorway and make your mother physically remove me. You could have called me. For what? I don't know. To tell me your marriage was apparently falling apart on a Thursday. I didn't know it was on the schedule. She released a breath. Where are you? I told her. I'll come get you. I have my truck. I mean, you can stay with me. No. Why? Because you have one guest room and a husband who gets up at 4:30 in the morning. Dana likes you? I like Dana. That's why I'm not arriving with luggage and 40 years of marital debris. He owns earplugs. I'm fine here. You're in a motel beside an interstate. It has sailboat art. That changes everything. The anger in her voice loosened just enough for me to recognize my daughter again. I need you to tell me the rest, she said. Mom said you both agreed she needed space to grieve with her family. We did not both agree, so she lied. She edited, don't protect her from the word. I'm not protecting her. I'm trying not to give you a version you can't unhear. I'm 41 years old. You're still my daughter, and she's still my mother. If she asked you to leave, I need to know. You know, why would she do that? I looked at the photograph face down on the desk. She says, I make her family uncomfortable. You make everybody uncomfortable. You stare at people while they tell bad stories. I'm listening. It looks judicial. I don't know what to do about my face. You could occasionally move it. I smiled despite myself. Then Rebecca said, this isn't funny. No. Was it about the garage? That was part of it. What's the other part? Your mother says she doesn't know who she is anymore. She says I go quiet and make everyone feel judged. Rebecca did not dismiss that as nonsense. I wish she had. You do go quiet, she said. That doesn't mean I should be removed from my house. No, it doesn't. Her answer came quickly, but not carelessly. Did you fight for her? She asked. I've been married to her for 40 years. That's history, Dad. I asked what you did tonight. I asked if she wanted me gone. And she'd packed the picture beside my bed. Rebecca inhaled sharply. I could have told her about the medication, the shirts, the funeral clothes. The picture was enough. All right, she said. You're not staying there more than one night. I haven't decided. I'm deciding for you. That worked well for your mother. She went silent. That was cheap, I said. I'm sorry. Yes, it was. I said I was sorry. I heard you. An apology isn't a trap door. That was pure Diane. Not the Diane of that afternoon, frightened and obedient to her sister, but the woman I had married, the one who could take a sentence apart while I was still congratulating myself for building it. I'll find somewhere tomorrow, I said. Call me first. I'll consider it. Dad, I'll call and answer if Mom calls. I did. How did that go? Her family was waiting for dinner. Rebecca made a sound that contained several words she was choosing not to use. Call me tomorrow, she repeated. We said goodnight. Neither of us said anything about calling Luke. Families develop invisible borders during a crisis. I could already feel mine being surveyed. I slept badly. At 2 a.m, the air conditioner began rattling. At 3, somebody laughed in the hallway for an unreasonable length of time. At 5:30, a delivery truck backed toward the restaurant below my window, beeping with the patience of a machine that knew I had nowhere better to be. I showered, dressed, and discovered I had no socks. There are large tragedies in marriage, and there are small ones that expose the wiring. Diane had packed my medication, my photograph, and the shirt I wore while burying her mother, but not one pair of socks. I sat on the edge of the bed holding yesterday's pair, and wondered whether forgetting them proved she still expected me home or simply meant she had been upset. By 6:15, I was tired of assigning meaning to socks. The motel breakfast offered coffee, powdered eggs, and a waffle maker that 3 adults stood around as if attending a medical procedure. I took coffee and left. Hanley's Hardware opened at 7. It was the kind of store where you could still buy a single screw instead of a plastic box containing 49 screws you did not need. Walt Hanley had owned it since his father died, which had happened so long ago that most people assumed the father's portrait behind the counter was Walt as a young man. Walt himself was 72, narrow as a fence post, and wore a green apron over the same white shirt every day. He watched me place 2 packages of work socks on the counter. Emergency? He asked. You sell socks. We sell a lot of things. You've never bought clothing from me. My regular supplier failed. Diane? I looked at him. Only regular supplier I could think of. He rang up the socks. Beside the register was a corkboard covered in handwritten notices, lawnmower repair, piano lessons, an oak dining set, and a furnished apartment available above the store. I read the apartment card twice. Walt slid my receipt across the counter. That's still available? He followed my eyes. Might be. What does that mean? Means I don't want somebody up there who plays drums or breeds reptiles. I do neither. What did you do? Why does everybody assume I did something? Because you're buying emergency socks at 7 a.m. and asking about an apartment 12 minutes later. I folded the receipt. Diane asked me to leave for a while. Walt considered that. He did not say he was sorry. He did not ask what I had done. How long's a while? 6 weeks? Maybe longer? That sounds like 2 different answers. It felt that way. He removed a ring of keys from beneath the counter and called toward the back of the store. Janice, I'm going upstairs. A woman's voice answered, Take a weapon. My wife, Walt explained. I've met Janice. Then you know she means it. The apartment was reached through an exterior staircase along the side of the building. The metal steps complained under our weight. At the top, Walt unlocked a blue door and stood aside. The place had 1 bedroom, a narrow kitchen, and a living room overlooking the store's parking lot. The furniture had been assembled across several decades without consultation. There was a brown sofa, a green chair, and a coffee table with a burn mark the size of a silver dollar. Everything was clean. My nephew stayed here after his second divorce, Walt said. Then he went back to the first wife. Efficient. She'd kept his fishing equipment. The bedroom had a full-size bed and 2 mismatched lamps. No sailboats. How much? He told me. It was less than the motel would cost for a week. Utilities included except cable. No smoking, no pets over 30 pounds. What about reptiles? Those are Janice's rules. Mine are no drums. I'll take it for a month. Walt studied me again. You sure? No. All right. He gave me the key anyway. I checked out of the motel, carried the brown suitcase up the metal stairs, and set Diane's photograph on the bedroom dresser. I turned it upright this time. The apartment felt less temporary than I wanted it to. A motel room was a pause. This required towels, groceries, and a decision about where to put my shoes. I stood in the middle of the living room, listening to footsteps and rolling carts beneath the floor. Life in a hardware store began with a surprising amount of metal. My phone buzzed. Diane had sent 3 messages. Ross found the garage key. Do you know where Mom's old card table is? Also, the downstairs bathroom faucet is dripping again. I answered only the second. Card table is in June's basement, behind the shelves by the laundry sink. A few seconds later, she replied, Thank you. Then, are you coming by for clothes? I typed, yes, erased it, typed later, erased that too. When will everyone be at your mother's house? Her answer took several minutes. We're leaving at 10. Paul is staying here to work. Why? I told her I needed more clothes and a few things from the garage. This is still your home, Martin. You don't have to schedule an appointment. I stared at that sentence until the words lost their shape. At 10:30, I drove back. My truck seemed louder on our street. I parked at the curb rather than in the driveway and let myself in through the front door. The bakery box sat open on the kitchen counter. 2 pastries remained, both cut in half, as if everyone had wanted credit for restraint. There were 6 coffee cups in the sink. My chair had been moved away from the table to make room for one of June's folding chairs. Paul was in the den wearing headphones. He saw me, lifted one finger, and continued talking to someone about quarterly projections. I went upstairs. Diane's side of the bedroom was untidy. A blouse lay across the bed, and 2 dresser drawers stood open. My closet looked as if someone had taken a hurried bite from it. The empty section where my shirts had hung was more disturbing than I expected. I found a canvas bag and packed socks, sweaters, an old sweatshirt, and the clothes Diane had overlooked. In the bathroom, my toothbrush still stood beside hers. I left it there. When I came downstairs, Paul had removed his headphones. He looked at the canvas bag. Valerie said you wanted a break. I wanted your wife in a hotel. To my surprise, he laughed. Then the front door opened. Diane stepped inside, carrying a stack of flattened boxes. Valerie was directly behind her. Both of them looked at the bag in my hand. Diane's face changed. What are you doing? She asked. Valerie answered before I could. He's making sure you understand the threat. Is that what I'm doing? I asked. Valerie set her purse on the counter. It was a large cream-colored bag with gold buckles, the sort of purse that looked like it had opinions about your shoes. You know exactly what you're doing. I came for clothes. You came while Diane was out. She told me to. Diane shifted the flattened boxes against her hip. I said you didn't have to schedule an appointment. No, you said Paul would be here. Paul raised one hand from the den. I can confirm my presence. Nobody looked at him. Diane put the boxes on the kitchen table. One slid from the stack and knocked an empty coffee cup onto the floor. It didn't break. The 4 of us watched it roll in a slow circle. Are you staying at the motel again? She asked. No. Something in my answer frightened her. Then where are you staying? I rented an apartment above Hanley's Hardware. Valerie's eyebrows lifted. You rented an apartment. For a month. Diane stared at me as if I had confessed to keeping another family above the plumbing aisle. You didn't tell me. I signed the lease 45 minutes ago. We don't know what we're doing yet. You seemed to know yesterday. I asked for time, and I found somewhere to spend it. Valerie stepped closer to her sister. She did it casually, but the movement had purpose. With Valerie, every room eventually acquired sides. This is what I was warning you about, she said. Diane kept looking at me. What did you warn her about? That you would turn one boundary into a catastrophe so she'd feel guilty for setting it. The boundary is me sleeping somewhere else. For a few weeks. Maybe longer, I said. Diane flinched. Valerie turned to her. Did you say that? I said I didn't know. No, I said. You said maybe longer. I was upset. So was I. Mine still counted. Paul came out of the den carrying his laptop. He had removed his tie and rolled his sleeves to the elbows. Paul always looked more at home after taking off one item of business clothing, as though he had been released on good behavior. Maybe everybody should lower the temperature, he said. No one's raising their voice, Valerie told him. I didn't say volume. She gave him a look that suggested they would continue that discussion during a future drive of considerable length. Diane came around the table. You paid for a month? Yes. With what? Money? I know with money. Then we're making progress. Her mouth tightened. I had done it again. A quick answer, a closed door. From checking, I said. I didn't take anything from savings. I wasn't accusing you. I don't know what questions mean anymore. Valerie folded her arms. They mean Diane is trying to understand why her husband couldn't wait 24 hours before creating a second household. An apartment over Hanley's Hardware is not a second household. The sofa and chair aren't even from the same decade. This is not funny. I've been told. Martin, Diane said. Quieter now. You could have stayed with Luke or Rebecca. I didn't want to put them in the middle. You called them. They called me. You told them I threw you out. I told them you asked me to leave. There's a difference. What is it? You make it sound so cold. You put my pills in a shoe, Diane. I'm open to warmer language if you have some. Her eyes filled. Valerie touched the back of her arm. That simple gesture angered me more than anything Valerie had said. Not because Diane did not deserve comfort, but because for years I had been the person who knew where to put a hand when her face looked like that. Now I was causing the pain. Valerie was soothing it, and everybody in the kitchen seemed satisfied that the roles made sense. Paul set his laptop on the counter. For whatever it's worth, he said. I didn't know Diane had asked you to leave. Valerie turned. We discussed this in the car. You said Martin agreed to give everyone room. He did leave. Those are not necessarily the same thing. Whose side are you on? Paul looked tired. The side where words continue to have definitions. I almost liked him then. Valerie's face colored. You haven't been part of the conversations Diane and I have had. Exactly, I said. She swung back toward me. You want to make me the villain because that's easier than admitting your wife has been unhappy. I don't think you made her unhappy. That's not what I said. No. You're better at this than Ross. At what? Leaving enough space in a sentence to deny it later. Diane wiped beneath one eye with her finger. Stop talking about me like I'm not here. We did. The silence that followed belonged entirely to her. She looked at Valerie first, then Paul, and finally me. I asked Martin to leave, she said. He didn't agree. I asked, Valerie began. You had every right. I'm not asking whether I had the right. Her voice was still soft, but it changed the room. For a moment, I saw the woman who had once returned a new car because the dealership manager called her sweetheart. Then she looked at the canvas bag in my hand. Are you taking everything? No. How much are you taking? I don't know what I'll need. That's what I mean. You won't say what you're doing. I'm taking enough clothes for the time you asked me to be gone. I don't know how long that is. Neither do I. You could come home before 6 weeks. Will your family still be here? Valerie answered for her. Yes. I kept my eyes on Diane. She did not answer at all. There it is, I said. I carried the bag toward the mudroom. Diane followed me. The garage door was open. Ross had already cleared a space along the west wall by pushing my rolling tool cabinet in front of the freezer. 3 stacks of folded moving boxes leaned against my workbench. Valerie had written, keep, sell, and discuss in thick black marker across them. Discuss was twice the size of the others. I moved the tool cabinet back and opened the top drawer. The sockets were exactly where I had left them, arranged by size. I took a smaller red toolbox from beneath the bench and began filling it with what I might need. Diane stood in the doorway. You don't need tools in an apartment. Things still break above hardware stores. That isn't what I meant. I know. She stepped into the garage and lowered her voice. Valerie shouldn't have said you were threatening me. No, she's protective. She's territorial. You do reduce people. I stopped with a screwdriver in my hand. You're right. She had prepared herself for an argument. My agreement left her with nowhere to put it. I closed the toolbox. Valerie has also spent 30 years telling you that every disagreement with her is proof somebody else controls you. That's not fair. She said it about your mother. She said it about me. She said it about the woman who ran your book club. Marilyn did control the book club. Marilyn sent reminders. She assigned discussion questions. A monster. Diane's mouth twitched. This time the smile lasted half a second before it disappeared. I picked up the toolbox. Do you want me to leave the garage key? She stared at it on my ring. It was an ordinary brass key with a strip of blue tape around the top. June had once labeled every key in her kitchen drawer with nail polish, and Diane had copied the idea. The blue tape had been there for at least 12 years. No, she said. You still live here? I looked past her at the stacks of empty boxes. Where should I sleep tonight? Her face folded inward. I didn't mean it like that. I'm trying to understand how you meant it. I wanted room to think without feeling like I had to take care of your reaction. My reaction was leaving. You didn't give me a choice. I set the toolbox on the floor. I didn't give you a choice. That came out wrong. You packed for me, told me to go before they arrived, and now I've left too decisively. I thought you'd understand what I needed. You wanted me gone without behaving like a man who'd been sent away. She looked toward the kitchen, checking whether Valerie could hear. I wanted you to show me that you cared. The sentence was so quiet I nearly missed it. By refusing to leave? I don't know. That could have become ugly. I know. I thought not making it ugly was caring. She pressed her fingers to her lips. For 1 second, I thought she might reach for me. Ross's SUV turned into the driveway. The moment closed. I picked up the toolbox and carried it out as Ross parked crooked beside my truck. He climbed out holding a roll of trash bags and a paper sack from a sandwich shop. Hey, he said. You found the garage. I built the shelves. I meant the key. I know what you meant. Ross looked at the toolbox, then at Diane. Everything okay? It was an innocent question asked by a man standing at the center of the problem. Fine, Diane said. I loaded the toolbox and canvas bag into my truck. Ross opened the rear of his SUV. We found some of Mom's old dining chairs. One's in rough shape. You think you could look at it? Diane closed her eyes. I almost laughed. I almost said yes. The answer had formed in my mouth before I examined it. Not today, I said. Ross looked genuinely surprised. Sure, no problem. He made it sound as if I had declined a mint. I drove back to Hanley's with Diane watching from the garage. Rebecca arrived an hour later carrying 2 bath towels, a coffee maker, and a grocery bag. I told you I'd call, I said. You also told me you'd consider staying with me. We're both liars now. She walked into the apartment and inspected it without removing her coat. This sofa looks contagious. It's clean. That's not what I said. She placed the coffee maker on the kitchen counter and opened the grocery bag. Coffee, bread, peanut butter, bananas, paper towels, and a package of socks. I bought socks. I assume Mom forgot. How? I called her. I stared at her. Rebecca leaned against the counter. She was crying. Did she mention the part where I was also unhappy? No. Did you? I'm standing in an apartment above a hardware store. That's location, not emotion. I looked away. She noticed the photograph on the bedroom dresser. You brought that? Your mother packed it. Still. I wasn't going to leave it in the suitcase. Rebecca sat in the green chair. It made a small wheezing sound beneath her. Mom thinks renting this place means you're done. Your mother told me maybe longer, and you heard the longest possible version. I needed somewhere to stay. I know. She rubbed her palms together and looked around the little room. You make leaving look easy, she said. You always have. You go quiet, pick up the heavy thing, and walk out like nobody can hurt you. That isn't what happened. It's what everyone saw. I sat on the brown sofa across from her. What would you have had me do? I don't know. But if this hurts, Dad, you might have to let somebody see it before they build a whole story around your silence. Downstairs, something heavy struck the floor. Walt shouted, I meant to do that, and Janice shouted back that nobody believed him. Rebecca smiled faintly. I looked toward the bedroom, where the man in the old photograph still had his arm around Diane. It hurts, I said. My voice broke on the second word. Rebecca's smile vanished. She moved from the chair to the sofa and sat beside me without touching me. For once, I didn't make a joke, apologize, or find something broken to repair. Rebecca stayed beside me until my breathing settled. She did not pat my shoulder or tell me everything would be all right. Our family distrusted promises that required no evidence. After a while, she said, Do you want to stay married? Yes. The answer came fast enough to surprise us both. Then why did you have to think about it? I didn't. You made a face. That's just my face. She gave me a tired look. I'm trying here, so am I. Do you want to stay married the way you were married? That answer did require thought. No. Rebecca nodded as if I had confirmed something she already suspected. What about Mom? You'll have to ask her. I did. She said she wants to know who she is without you. That makes one of us. Which one? I don't know who I am without her either. Rebecca reached for my hand. She held it briefly, squeezed once, and let go before either of us became uncomfortable enough to say something foolish. When she left, the apartment contained twice as many towels and considerably less air. I unpacked the coffee maker, washed it, filled the little kitchen cabinet with her groceries, and placed the bananas in a wooden bowl that smelled faintly of onions. Then I carried the extra socks into the bedroom. Diane called at 8:15. I watched the phone ring until it stopped. She called again at 8:17. Is something wrong? I asked. Do I need an emergency to call my husband? I sat on the edge of the bed. No. Rebecca said she saw you. She brought supplies. She told me I forgot your socks. I found some. I didn't forget on purpose. I didn't think you did. You said it like it proved something. I haven't said anything about it to you. You told Rebecca? She noticed I was wearing yesterday's socks. There was a pause. You discussed your socks with our daughter? Not extensively. I was upset when I packed. I know. I don't usually pack for you. I know that too. Every sentence felt like stepping across wet stones. Neither of us wanted to fall in, and neither of us was getting anywhere. I'm making dinner Sunday, she said. Luke and Rebecca are coming. Is this your family dinner or ours? The question escaped before I could soften it. There are children, Martin. I know. Valerie and Ross will be here too. And Paul. Dana has a work event. Do you want me there? I wouldn't have called if I didn't. That was not quite an answer, but it was closer than most things we had said. All right. You'll come? Yes. Her relief traveled through the phone as a small exhale. 6 o'clock. I know what time we eat. I was just telling you. I'll see you Sunday. She said goodbye, then added, the bathroom faucet stopped dripping. That's good. A plumber replaced the cartridge. I waited. It cost $180, she said. Also good. How is that good? Plumbers have families. She hung up on me. The next morning, Walt knocked on my door at 7:05 while I was standing in the kitchen waiting for the coffee maker to finish. Your truck's blocking the delivery entrance. I parked where you told me. I forgot we get deliveries. You run a hardware store. Come downstairs when you're decent. I'm dressed. Then I won't speculate about the rest. I moved the truck. When I went inside to return the spare key he had loaned me, Janice handed me a paper cup of coffee even though I told her I already had some upstairs. This is drinkable, she said. Janice was a compact woman with silver hair cut close around her face. She handled the register, the bookkeeping, and Walt. Of the three, Walt appeared to require the most attention. You need anything for the apartment? She asked. A quieter floor. That's supporting the inventory. I thought it might be bowling. Thursdays. Walt emerged from an aisle carrying a cardboard display of work gloves. He'll get used to it. I'm not planning to be there long enough. Neither of them answered. That was one of the benefits of talking to people who sold drain snakes. They knew when not to pull. During the next few days, Diane contacted me through a series of practical questions. Did I know where June's extension ladder was? Had I seen the key to her cedar chest? Which breaker controlled the outlets on the west side of our garage? I answered the first two. On the third, I told her the panel was labeled. Ross texted 5 minutes later. Labels faded. I sent him a photograph I had taken after replacing the panel cover the previous spring. He replied with a thumbs up, then asked if I could come move my workbench 6 feet to the left. I did not answer. On Saturday evening, Luke called. Mom says you're coming tomorrow. That's the rumor. Can we please have one normal dinner? How many abnormal ones are you expecting? I'm serious. So am I. He sighed. Aunt Valerie thinks you're using the apartment to pressure Mom. Your Aunt Valerie is welcome to rent the one next door and observe me. There is no one next door. It's a hardware store. Then her research will be difficult. You know, this is what Mom means. I leaned against the kitchen counter. What does she mean? You act like none of this touches you. Everybody else is upset and you make little comments. I'm not sure what you'd prefer. I'd prefer you go home. Your mother asked me to leave. She asked for space, Dad. People say things when they're grieving. She packed a suitcase while grieving. That was extreme. It felt organized. I'm not saying she handled it right. I'm saying you don't have to make it worse. By living somewhere, by turning it into a test she has to pass. I haven't asked her to do anything. That can be a test too. I thought about that after we hung up. Luke had always needed instructions. Give him a destination, a deadline, and a list, and he would exhaust himself doing everything correctly. Unspoken expectations made him furious. I had assumed that trait came from Diane. At 5:55 on Sunday, I parked at the curb. Through the dining room window, I could see everyone gathered around the table. Ross sat in my chair at the end nearest the kitchen. It was not a ceremonial chair. It had no carved arms or special cushion. It was simply where I had sat for 32 years because the light from the window was behind me there. Rebecca saw me first. She came to the door before I knocked. You parked on the street. The driveway was full. There's room behind Mom. I may want to leave. Her eyes narrowed. That sounded worse than I meant it. It sounded exactly like you meant it. She kissed my cheek and took the bottle of wine I had brought. Inside, the house smelled like roast beef and rosemary. Diane had made the meal we served when there were guests, which meant she considered me one of them, or everyone else. She came out of the kitchen wearing the blue apron June had given her. "Hi," she said. "Hi." For a second, we stood close enough to embrace. Then Valerie walked between us, carrying a bowl of potatoes. "Martin, you made it. I was invited. Of course you were." Paul appeared behind her with a serving spoon. "I've been promoted." "To what?" He looked at the spoon. "I'm still waiting on a title." Luke greeted me from the living room with a quick hug. It had been years since he had hugged me without an occasion attached. I wondered whether he meant comfort or containment. Dinner began politely. Ross told a long story about finding 3 boxes of hotel soap in June's linen closet. Valerie explained that their mother grew up during a time when waste was considered immoral. Rebecca asked whether anybody wanted wine. Paul said he wanted the hotel soap. I sat beside Luke in the chair usually occupied by Paul. Every time Diane came from the kitchen, she looked toward my old place before finding me. After the plates were filled, Valerie raised her glass. To Diane, she said, "For giving all of us a place to come together and do this properly." Ross lifted his glass. Paul did too, though more slowly. I drank water. Rebecca said, "Grandma's house is the place you're working on." Valerie smiled. "There's no room to breathe there yet." "There's plenty of room now," I said. "Most of the furniture is in my garage." Luke shifted beside me. Diane set down her fork. I'm not criticizing." "It sounded like criticism," Valerie said. "Everything sounds like criticism when you're listening for it," Luke whispered. "Dad." "What?" "One normal dinner. This is normal. Your uncle is in my chair, and your aunt is making a toast in my house." Ross looked beneath himself as if the chair might contain instructions. "I can move." "Don't," Diane said too quickly. The word silenced the table. Ross stayed where he was. I cut a piece of roast beef. It was cooked exactly the way I liked it, pink in the center with too much pepper. Diane noticed me eating it. Her shoulders lowered slightly, then Ross said, "I put that dining chair in your workshop, the loose one from Mom's. I saw it. You think it can be saved?" "Yes." "Great. No rush. I didn't say I'd repair it." His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Valerie looked at me. "Why wouldn't you?" "Because I'm not there. You were there Friday. To get clothes. It would take you 20 minutes. It won't. The joint has to be cleaned and re-glued." Ross brightened. "So, you do know how." "Knowing how isn't an agreement." Luke put down his knife. "Why are you doing this? Eating, making every little thing a line in the sand?" The line was there when my suitcase went beside the door. Diane stood so abruptly her chair scraped the floor. "I'm getting the rolls." There were already rolls on the table. She went into the kitchen. Valerie followed her. Luke stared at me. "You could have just fixed the chair. I could fix the faucet too. That's not the point. It has been the point for 40 years, Rebecca said. "Luke, stop." "No." "He comes in here acting like everybody should apologize because Mom needed one thing." I looked toward the kitchen doorway. What did she need? Her family. The answer hurt more because he believed it. I folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. Then I should let her have them. Rebecca reached for my sleeve. "Dad." "I'm not making a scene." "That's the problem," Luke said. "You leave before anybody can." I stood. Diane returned from the kitchen holding an empty bread basket. She saw me beside my chair, Paul's chair, really, and stopped. "You're going?" "I think I should. We haven't had dessert." I looked at the empty basket in her hands. "Thank you for dinner," I said. "The roast was good." Her face tightened as though kindness had become another weapon. I walked to the front door. This time, nobody tried to stop me before I reached it. Outside, I heard the door open behind me. I expected Rebecca. It was Luke. "You embarrassed her," he said. I turned. Through the dining room window, Ross still sat in my chair, while Valerie stood behind Diane with both hands on her shoulders. "No," I said. "I just didn't disappear quietly enough." Luke glanced back at the dining room window. "You didn't have to say it like that." "Like what? Like Mom replaced you?" "I didn't say that." "You looked at Uncle Ross. He's sitting where I sit. It's a chair." "Yes." He shoved his hands into his pockets. The porch light caught the gray beginning at his temples. I had noticed it at Christmas and resisted mentioning it. Luke considered observations about aging a form of aggression. "Then why does it matter?" he asked. "Because no one noticed. I noticed. After I mentioned it." He looked down at the porch boards. I had replaced 3 of them the previous summer, working from below, so the new screw heads wouldn't show. "Mom's been unhappy for a while," he said. "The street seemed to grow quieter around us." "How long?" "I don't know. You just said for a while." "That doesn't mean she gave me a date. What did she tell you?" Luke leaned against the railing. "She asked if I thought you were happy." "When?" "In June." June had still been alive then. We were taking turns staying overnight at her house because she had started falling. I spent 3 evenings a week sleeping on a couch 6 inches shorter than I was and woke before sunrise to make coffee the way June liked it, weak enough to see the bottom of the cup. "What did you say?" I said, "You always seem the same." It was the sort of answer people gave about a thermostat. "What else did she say?" "She said sometimes she couldn't tell if you loved her or if you just felt responsible for her." I looked through the window. Diane was seated again. Valerie had taken my place beside her, while Rebecca gathered plates no one had finished using. "Why didn't you tell me?" Luke gave me a sharp look. "Because she was talking to me, not issuing a press release. She's my wife. She's my mother. She's allowed to say something without it getting reported back to you. I'm not asking you to betray her. You kind of are." I walked to the edge of the porch. My truck sat beneath the maple tree, its hood speckled with the first leaves of September. "What did you tell her?" I asked. "I told her to talk to you." "She didn't. Maybe she tried." I would remember my wife asking whether I loved her. "Would you?" I turned. Luke's face changed immediately. He had heard the cruelty in the question after it left him. "I'm sorry," he said. "No. Maybe I wouldn't." "Dad, I'm not being dramatic. I'm thinking. That always looks the same from out here." I nodded. The front door opened behind him. Rebecca stepped onto the porch holding my jacket. "You forgot this. I didn't wear one." She looked at the jacket, then through the doorway. "Mom said it was yours." "It was Luke's." Rebecca checked the label and handed it to her brother. "Strong work from everyone tonight." Luke put it on, even though the air was warm. "Dad was leaving," he said. I gathered that from the truck. I looked at both of them. For years, I had measured the health of our family by whether they came home for holidays, called on birthdays, and asked for my help when something broke. They had done all of those things. I had not measured whether they knew me. I wasn't sure I had given them enough information. "I didn't come to punish your mother," I said. Rebecca crossed her arms. "Okay." Luke was less generous. "Then why did you come?" "Because she asked me." "And why are you leaving?" "Because everyone at that table is pretending she didn't." The door opened again, and Valerie's voice reached us. "Dessert's getting warm." "It's pie," Rebecca called back. "It has ice cream." "Then the dessert is getting warm." Valerie closed the door. Rebecca looked at me. "Do you want me to come with you?" "No." "Do you want me to stay?" "Yes." That answer surprised her. "Your mother shouldn't lose both of us tonight," I said. Luke rubbed the back of his neck. "You could come back in," he said. "I could?" None of us moved. Finally, I kissed Rebecca's forehead, squeezed Luke's shoulder, and walked to my truck. The apartment was dark when I returned. I left it that way. I sat in the green chair until the store's illuminated sign went off at 10. Somewhere beneath me, a pipe ticked at uneven intervals. Cars passed along the street, their headlights sliding across the ceiling. At 11:40, Diane sent a message. "You left your pie." I typed 3 different answers and deleted all of them. In the morning, Walt stopped me beside the paint counter. "Janice says you look terrible. Tell Janice thank you." She didn't say it as a compliment. I slept in the chair. The sofa worse? I haven't decided. He handed me a small brass screw. "This yours?" "Why would that be mine?" "You're living upstairs. I've been there 4 days. I haven't begun shedding hardware." He put it in his apron pocket. "All tenants say that." Tuesday afternoon, Paul came into the store carrying one of June's dining chairs. He held it upside down in front of him, the loose front leg swinging with each step. Janice watched from behind the register. "No outside furniture," she said. "I'm looking for Martin. That doesn't improve the furniture." I came from the plumbing aisle, where Walt had asked my opinion about a display he had already built. Paul lowered the chair. "I didn't know if you were upstairs. I wasn't. I can see that now. What are you doing with June's chair?" "Attempting personal growth." Janice leaned toward me. "He may need the larger size." Paul smiled. "Valerie wants to throw it away. Ross wants to list it as distressed. It's definitely distressed." "You said it could be repaired." "I also said I wasn't repairing it. I heard you." He turned the chair upright and set it carefully on the floor. "I'm going to repair it." I looked at him. "With supervision," he added. "I charge by the hour. I'm a consultant. I'm familiar with fictional rates." We carried the chair upstairs. Paul had brought a bag containing wood glue, 2 metal corner braces, a roll of duct tape, and a bag of miniature chocolate bars. "The chocolate is the only correct thing here," I told him. "I thought the braces would hold the leg. They would hold it badly." "Is that a woodworking term?" "It is now." I showed him how to mark each joint, loosen the remaining connections without splitting the wood, and scrape away the old glue. He worked carefully but held every tool as if it might ask him a difficult question. After 20 minutes, he said, "Valerie thinks you hate her." "I don't hate your wife. She'll be disappointed. I find her exhausting. That will comfort her." He scraped at a strip of glue. "She thinks you look down on the family," he said. "I look at them. Sometimes that's enough." "Fair. You don't have to agree with me because you're in my apartment." "I'm not. I've disagreed with Valerie in several places." "How did that go?" "We've been married 37 years. Clearly I survived." He put down the scraper. "She feels guilty," he said. "About June?" "About a lot of things." "But yes." "She missed calls near the end. She kept saying she'd come once work settled down, then once the kitchen renovation was done, then after our trip." I did not answer. "Seeing how much you did makes it worse," Paul continued. "If you're controlling, then Diane didn't choose to do more. If you're judgmental, then Valerie doesn't have to ask whether the judgment is accurate. That's generous analysis from a man who bought duct tape. I contain multitudes." He held up the cleaned joint. "What next?" "We re-glued the chair. I made him do each step while I explained. When he reached for too much glue, I stopped him. When he adjusted the clamp correctly without asking, I said nothing. He glanced at me. "Was that right?" "Yes." "You could say that before I beg." "I'm learning." So is everybody, apparently. A knock sounded at the door. Diane stood on the landing holding a grocery sack and a stack of mail. She looked from me to Paul to her mother's chair, clamped on the kitchen floor. "Why is that here?" Paul wiped his hands on a rag. "I'm fixing it." "You're fixing Mom's chair?" "Martin is supervising my personal growth." Diane almost smiled. "Valerie knows you're here?" "No," Paul said. "I'm going to enjoy that later." He took a chocolate bar, kissed Diane's cheek, and left us alone. She remained near the door. "I brought your mail." "You could have left it at the store." "I brought a few other things." She placed the grocery sack on the counter. Inside were my toothbrush, 2 books from my nightstand, the gray sweater she liked, and the small bottle of hot sauce I kept beside the stove. "You didn't have to do that. I didn't know what you needed." She looked around the apartment. Rebecca's coffee maker sat beside the sink. The peanut butter was open on the counter. My shoes were lined against the bedroom wall. "You've made it a home," she said. "I've made it livable. That's what you do." I could not tell whether it was praise or accusation. She walked into the bedroom and saw the Lake Erie photograph standing on the dresser. "You put it out. You packed it. I wasn't sure you'd want to look at it. Neither was I." Her hand hovered near the frame, but did not touch it. "I'm sorry about Sunday," she said. "For inviting me? For everything after?" That covers a lot. I'm trying, I know. She looked at me, waiting for something else. I made myself continue. I'm sorry too. For what? For making the dinner a demonstration. Her eyes softened. It did feel like that. It felt like one to me too. We stood in the little bedroom, closer than we had been since she packed my suitcase. I could smell her hand lotion, orange blossom. She had used the same kind for years. The house doesn't feel right, she said. It doesn't feel right from here either. Her phone rang. Valerie's name appeared on the screen. Diane silenced it, but she didn't put the phone away. We're going back to Mom's house tomorrow, she said. There are things in the basement I can't do alone. Ross is there. Ross makes every box heavier. That's a skill. She looked down at the phone. I'm asking you, Martin, not assigning you. Would you come help me? I glanced at June's chair, held together by clamps while the glue set. What time? Diane raised her eyes. 9. I'll be there. June's house looked smaller without her car in the driveway. The white curtains were still open because Diane said closed curtains made a vacant house look guilty. 2 flattened boxes leaned against the porch, already damp at the bottom from the morning dew. Diane unlocked the front door as I came up the walk. You're early, she said. It's 8:58. You said 9. I was allowing time for the stairs. There are 3. You should see me on 4. She smiled, then looked past me toward the street. Valerie and Ross aren't coming until 11. You didn't mention that. I thought we could get some things done first. The house smelled like dust, lemon furniture polish, and the lavender powder June used in quantities that suggested she had once survived a moth uprising. Pale rectangles marked the walls where photographs had been removed. The living room rug was gone, revealing a darker border around the floorboards. I had spent hundreds of hours in that house. Without June, I felt like I had entered after closing. Diane handed me a paper cup of coffee. 2 sugars, she said. I take 1. You used to take 2. I changed in 2009. That long ago? It was a difficult year. She laughed softly. For the first time since I left, we stood in a room without another person's opinion occupying it. Diane had stacked 4 plastic bins near the basement door. Each was labeled kitchen, photos, linens, or unsure. Unsure is dangerous, I said. I know. Valerie wants everything put there. What do you need me to do? Mom kept all the holiday things under the basement stairs. I want to bring them up before Ross starts throwing things into the dumpster. Ross rented a dumpster? He ordered one. It's coming Friday. Did he measure the driveway? Diane closed her eyes. No. You need 8 feet on either side for delivery. He said they just drop it. From an airplane? She pulled out her phone. Don't, I said. Let him solve one thing. Diane looked at me over the screen. Who are you? I'm experimenting. The basement light switch still made a small spark when pressed. I had replaced it twice. The problem was somewhere behind the plaster, and June had refused to let me open the wall because it would create dust. The basement smelled cooler than the rest of the house. Metal shelves ran along one wall, filled with paint cans, cleaning supplies, flower pots, and jars of screws June had sorted by categories she invented herself. One jar said, sharp. Another said, possibly useful. Diane lifted a box from beneath the stairs and sneezed. I handed her a dust mask from my pocket. You brought masks? I've met this basement. She tied it on. You brought one for me? I brought 4. Ross doesn't believe in dust until it's inside him. We worked in the easy rhythm we had developed over decades. I brought the boxes out. Diane decided what belonged upstairs. We did not ask each other where to stand or when to lift. She braced the bottom when I took a heavy bin. I knew when her left wrist had begun to ache because she changed the way she held things. The 3rd box contained Christmas decorations wrapped in yellowed newspaper. Diane sat on the bottom step and lifted out a wooden angel with 1 wing. You made this, she said. I repaired it. No, Mom said. You made it. June said many things. The angel had originally been part of a set Valerie bought at a craft fair. One fell from June's mantle and split down the center. I had copied it from a piece of maple because Valerie couldn't remember the artist's name. Diane ran her thumb over the smooth edge. She put it out every year. She said the damaged one had more personality. You never told me you made it. It was an angel, not a cathedral. She wrapped it again more carefully than before. Behind the shelves near the laundry sink, I found the card table she had asked about. Several flattened cartons had fallen against it, so I moved those aside. On the wall above the sink was a paper calendar from the previous year. June had written appointments in large block letters: podiatrist, hair, Diane lunch. The days I came were marked with an M inside a circle. Diane stood beside me. I didn't know she wrote you down. She wrote everybody down, not like that. Near the end of every month, June had circled 2 or 3 Thursdays, sometimes a Tuesday. When her health declined, the circles became more frequent. Beside one of them, she had written, Martin, light bulbs, toilet, no lecture. Diane touched the page. What was the lecture? She kept climbing on a kitchen chair to change the bulbs. She told me she stopped doing that. She stopped telling you. A grocery list was held to the calendar by a magnet shaped like a strawberry. Half the list was in June's handwriting. The rest was mine. Milk, decaf, apricot preserves, the crackers with no seeds. Ordinary things. Nothing that proved anything except that an elderly woman had wanted crackers and somebody had remembered which kind. You did all this while I was at work, Diane said. Most stores are open during the day. Don't. I reached for the card table. She put her hand on my arm. I'm not criticizing you. I know. Then why are you shutting me down? I don't want thanks now because I left. That isn't what this is. What is it? She looked at the calendar. I thought I knew what you did for her. You knew enough. No, I knew when you took her to appointments. I didn't know about all the other days. She didn't want you worrying. You helped her hide things from me? That sounds worse than it was. It always does when you say that. I leaned the card table against the shelves. She didn't want to be managed. You would have called every morning, and Valerie would have called you to discuss every call. So, you decided what I could handle. There it was, not a garage or a suitcase. The same old machinery beneath both. I did, I said. Diane's eyes stayed on me. I thought I was helping. You always think you're helping. I usually am. That doesn't mean you get to decide for everybody. No. The answer came without defense. Diane looked almost disappointed. I sat on the step across from her. Your mother asked me not to tell you every time she needed something, I said. I should have told her no. Why didn't you? Because she would have found a more dangerous way to do it herself. That sounds like her. And because I liked being the person she called. Diane frowned. Liked it? I knew what she needed from me. A ride, a wrench, a jar opened. It was simple. And I'm not. No. She looked hurt. Neither am I added. The basement door opened. Diane, Valerie called from upstairs. Why is Martin's truck here? Diane closed her eyes. Because it's not invisible, I said. She gave me a warning look, but the corner of her mouth moved. Valerie appeared at the top of the stairs, with Ross behind her. You started without us, she said. We were getting the holiday boxes, Diane answered. I thought we agreed to do Mom's things together. We've been doing them together for a week. You know what I mean. Ross came down sideways, one hand on the railing. Did you find the card table? I pointed. Great. I can use that for photographing the smaller items. Diane stood. I wanted to take it home. We have tables. It was Mom's. It's a folding table from Sears. You asked for her toaster. It has a bagel setting. Valerie descended the stairs carrying a clipboard. She had made columns with the siblings' names across the top. We need to finish the dining room today, she said. Martin, there's a sideboard that should go into your truck. No. She blinked. No, it won't fit. No, it won't go in my truck. We need to move it to Diane's. Then Ross can use his SUV. Ross shook his head. The seats don't fold flat. They did on Thursday. I've got boxes back there now. Valerie exhaled slowly. It would be helpful if we didn't turn every request into a referendum. I came because Diane asked me to help her with the basement. And helping her family doesn't count? Not today. Ross looked from me to Diane. Are you two fighting or separated? I can't keep track, Valerie said. They're taking space. Diane lifted the card table. I asked him to leave. The basement went still. Ross's eyebrows rose. You said it was mutual. I said we needed space. You said Martin agreed. I said what was easier. Valerie's face hardened. You don't owe anyone an explanation? I owe him the truth. You're letting him punish you. No, Diane said. He's letting me live with what I asked for. I watched her grip the card table until her knuckles whitened. Ross rubbed his chin. So you kicked him out? I didn't kick him. You packed my suitcase, I said. Valerie turned on me. Was that necessary? It happened. Diane carried the card table upstairs. I stayed where I was. If I followed, it would look like alliance. If I remained, it might look like triumph. There was no neutral position left. Ross picked up a bin marked holiday. "Well," he said, "this is uncomfortable." "That seems to be the family motto," I said. Valerie pointed her clipboard at me. "You enjoy this." "No, you enjoy being the injured one because it lets you stay calm while everyone else looks cruel." The accusation found its mark. I felt it and hated her for noticing. "I'm not calm," I said. "You could fool me. Maybe that's the problem." Ross looked at the stairs. "Should we carry things or schedule a group cry?" Valerie glared at him. "What?" "We have a dumpster coming." "Which won't fit in the driveway," Diane called from upstairs. Ross stared at me. "You told her?" I showed admirable restraint. He muttered something and pulled out his phone. For the next hour, we worked in separate orbits. Valerie inventoried the dining room. Ross called the dumpster company and discovered that gravity did not constitute a delivery plan. Diane carried boxes from the basement. I brought up the heavier ones and left them where she directed. When Valerie told me to load the sideboard, Diane said, "He already answered you." Valerie stared at her sister. It was a small boundary, hardly worth noticing. Diane looked exhausted after saying it. At noon, I washed the basement dust from my hands at the kitchen sink. The faucet handle squeaked. I had repaired that one 4 years earlier with a rubber washer from Hanley's. Diane stood beside the back door holding the wooden angel. "Thank you for coming." "You asked." "I know." Valerie and Ross were arguing in the dining room about the blue serving bowl. Paul had not arrived. The house seemed to fill every silence we tried to make. "Do you want to get coffee?" Diane asked. I looked toward the dining room. Now? Before I lose the nerve. We went to a diner 3 blocks away and sat in a booth by the window. Diane placed June's angel between us on the table because she did not want to leave it in the car. The waitress poured coffee and asked if we wanted menus. "No," Diane said. "Yes," I said at the same time. The waitress looked between us. "We'll take one," I told her. When she left, Diane wrapped both hands around her cup. "Would you have stayed?" she asked, "if you hadn't packed the suitcase?" "Yes, I stayed through everything else. That isn't what I'm asking." I looked at the broken-winged angel between us. "Yes," I said, "I would have stayed." She lowered her eyes. "That should make me feel better." "Does it?" "No." "Me neither." Her phone buzzed on the table. "Valerie," Diane turned it face down. "What would it take for you to come home?" she asked. "I don't know. You always know how to fix things. This isn't a chair. What if I ask now?" I wanted to say yes. The word rose so quickly it frightened me. Instead, I looked at her. "I don't want you to ask until you know why you want me there." Diane's expression changed, not anger exactly, but the pain of finding a locked door where she had expected a familiar room. "And what are you supposed to do while I figure that out?" "For once," I said, "nothing for you." The words hurt both of us, but I let them remain. Diane's coffee sat untouched between her hands. "That was cruel," she said. "Yes." She looked up, caught off guard by the agreement. "I didn't mean I want to punish you," I said. "I mean, I can't keep managing your life from somewhere you sent me. I haven't asked you to manage my life. You asked about the ladder, the cedar chest key, the circuit breaker, the card table, and the faucet. The faucet was conversation. It cost $180. That was a report." She pushed her cup away. "You've spent 40 years teaching me that this is how you love people. You fix things. You show up. You remember what everybody needs. Now you're withholding that and pretending it isn't punishment." I leaned back against the booth. "I'm still showing up. When it suits you. When you ask me, not when Valerie assigns me. This is not about Valerie. The woman is calling you right now." Her phone continued vibrating face down beside the wooden angel. Diane silenced it. "There," she said. "Now it isn't." The waitress returned with one menu and placed it between us. Neither of us reached for it. "You're right," I said. "About what?" "I taught you to recognize my love by what I did. And now you've stopped. I left when you told me to. That's one thing. It's a large thing. So is a marriage." The waitress came back, saw our faces, and retreated without asking. Diane touched the angel's broken wing. "You know what it felt like when you took care of Mom?" she asked. "It felt like you were better at being her family than I was." "I never thought that. You didn't have to. You were calm. You knew what the doctors said. You knew which groceries she needed. I would come in with the wrong crackers and she'd say, "Martin knows the kind." She shouldn't have done that, but you like being the one who knew. Her eyes held mine. I thought of the calendar in the basement, all those circled days. I had seen responsibility. Diane had seen evidence against herself. "Yes," I said. "I liked it." "Why?" "Because a grocery list doesn't change its mind. That isn't an answer. It's the answer I have." Diane waited. I rubbed my thumb along the edge of the table. June needed clear things, I said. A ride at 2. A light bulb replaced. Somebody to listen while she complained about Valerie's kitchen renovation. She hated those countertops. She thought marble was showing off. It was quartz. She hated that too. Diane smiled despite herself, then looked down again. "What did I need?" she asked. The question was soft enough that I almost pretended not to hear it. "I don't know. You never asked. I thought you'd tell me. I tried. When? Every time I said I couldn't do everything. Every time I said I was tired, and you told me not to worry because you had handled it. That was supposed to help." "I know, but you didn't sit with me. You removed the problem. I didn't know sitting was the job. I wasn't a job." The waitress appeared again, holding a coffee pot like a shield. "Anybody need a refill?" We both shook our heads. When she left, I said, "I didn't know how to watch you hurt, so you made yourself useful." "Yes." "That was easier, yes." Diane's eyes filled. "Sit with me now. I'm here." "No, you're defending yourself." The phone vibrated again. Valerie's name glowed against the tabletop. Diane turned it off completely. I let my hands rest in front of me. I did not explain. I did not reach for her cup, or move the menu, or suggest food. I looked at my wife while she cried in a diner 3 blocks from her mother's empty house. It was one of the hardest things I had ever done. After a while, she wiped her eyes with a paper napkin. "I hate this," she said. "I know. I hate you seeing me like this. I know that too." She looked at me. "Do you?" "Yes." We stayed another 15 minutes. Neither of us ordered food. When we left, Diane carried the wooden angel. At her car, she opened the passenger door, placed it upright on the seat, and fastened the seatbelt around it. "Mom did that with pies," I said. "She didn't trust my driving. She didn't trust gravity." Diane closed the door. "Thank you for coming today. You already thanked me." "I know. I'm doing it again." "All right." She waited, as if she hoped I might say more. I had plenty. None of it felt safe. I watched her drive away with the angel riding beside her. For 5 days, we did not speak. There were no practical questions, no updates about the faucet or June's house, no photographs from Ross asking what kind of wood he was looking at. The quiet should have felt peaceful. Instead, I started noticing the exact hour when Diane usually called. At 8 in the morning, she would have told me what Valerie had planned. Around noon, she might have asked whether I wanted anything from the grocery store. At 9:30, after everyone went to bed, she would have complained that Ross had left another glass on the coffee table without a coaster. I knew these conversations had not happened because my phone remained beside me like a patient animal. On Saturday, Janice knocked at 10 and told me the store was holding its monthly repair morning. I didn't know the store had a repair morning. "It's in the lease." "It is not." "You read the lease?" "Yes." That puts you ahead of Walt. Downstairs, 3 folding tables had been set up near the paint section. People brought lamps, small appliances, loose chair legs, and objects they were not emotionally prepared to throw away. I spent an hour helping a retired accountant named Loretta take apart a toaster that had stopped staying down. "My husband gave me this in 1996, she said. "A toaster?" We were practical. The spring inside had slipped from its bracket. I showed her how to reset it. "You aren't going to do it?" she asked. "You'll remember better if you do." My husband used to say that. Was he right? Occasionally. It kept him humble. She reattached the spring and pushed the lever. It stayed. Her satisfaction was so direct that I felt jealous of the toaster. At noon, Luke walked into the store carrying a white bakery container. He found me cleaning tools. "Janice said you were back here. You met Janice?" She asked whether I was law enforcement. "You're wearing a golf shirt." She said they've gotten more casual. I nodded toward the container. "What's that?" "The pie you left. That was 6 days ago." Mom froze it. Of course she did. We went upstairs. Luke inspected the apartment the way Rebecca had, though he was quieter about it. He sat in the green chair. It wheezed. "That sofa looks terrible," he said. "Your sister called it contagious. She's not wrong. I cut the pie while it was still partially frozen. The knife made cracking sounds through the crust. Mom told me what you said at the diner. Which part? That you're doing nothing for her. I said for once I would do nothing for her, meaning she has to decide what she wants without me arranging it. That isn't how she heard it. It wasn't how I meant it either. Luke accepted a piece of pie. What did you mean? I sat across from him. I meant, I can't prove she needs me by waiting for everything to break. He took a bite and chewed slowly. Is that what you think this is about? Being needed? I don't know. You keep saying that. I'm discovering how many things I don't know. That must be terrifying. It's been a difficult week. Luke looked toward the bedroom. From his chair, he could see the Lake Erie photograph on the dresser. She still loves you, he said. I still love her. Then what are you two doing? Your mother asked for space. She was angry. She packed efficiently for an angry person. You're never going to let that go, are you? Would you? He looked down at his pie. No. We ate in silence for a moment. Then he said, I'm sorry about Sunday. For what? Coming after you outside, telling you that you embarrassed her. You were trying to protect your mother. I was also mad at you. You're allowed. You made us guess what you were feeling. Then when we guessed wrong, you acted like we should have known better. Rebecca's words in a different voice. I'm trying not to do that. How's it going? I cried in front of your sister. Luke looked alarmed. A lot? It wasn't a flood. Still. I'm hurt, I said. I'm angry. I miss your mother. I want to go home, and I don't want to go back to the way it was. He stared at me. There, I said. That's how it's going. Luke took another bite of pie, though he seemed to have forgotten it was frozen. That was weird, he said. For me, too. He stayed until 3. We talked about his work, his condominium, and a woman he had been seeing for 4 months, but had not mentioned because he did not want anyone asking where it was going. I did not ask. That seemed to count as progress. At 10:30 that night, Diane called. Her breathing was uneven. What happened? I asked. Valerie took Mom's blue bowl, the one from the dining room. She put it in her car. Did you tell her you wanted it? Yes. She said, I already have the angel and the card table. Ross said we should draw numbers, like Mom's life is a church raffle. What did you do? I yelled. Good. No, not good. Valerie said I'm becoming like you. Better looking. Diane made a wet, unwilling sound that might have been a laugh. I don't know what to do, she said. Every old instinct rose at once. Call Valerie, drive there, retrieve the bowl, explain a fair system, make the problem disappear before Diane had to feel it. Instead, I asked, what do you want? I want the bowl. Then tell her I did, tell her again, and if she says no? What do you want then? Diane was quiet for a long time. I want my mother, she whispered. I know. Her crying came harder. I sat on the brown sofa with the phone against my ear. I did not tell her it would be all right. I did not offer a solution. I stayed. Eventually her breathing slowed. You're still there? She asked. Yes. My silence had spent years feeling like an empty room to her. That night, for the first time, I tried to make it a place where she did not have to be alone. The call lasted until 12:43. Near the end, Diane said, I'm sorry I called so late. You've called me later, not from a different house. Neither of us knew what to do with that. After we hung up, I stayed on the sofa with the dark phone in my hand. The apartment was quiet except for the refrigerator cycling on and off. I had listened to Diane cry without offering to fix the thing that hurt her. It should have felt like progress. It felt terrible. At 8 the next morning, she sent a photograph of the blue serving bowl sitting on our kitchen counter. She brought it back. I replied, good. A minute later, that's all? I typed several answers. The one I sent was, you asked for it and she listened. I'm proud of you. Diane did not respond until noon. Thank you. Paul arrived that afternoon to remove the clamps from June's chair. He tested each joint with both hands, then sat on it before I could stop him. You should wait another day. You said the glue was cured. Cured is not the same as eager. The chair held. Paul bounced twice. Don't become ambitious. I fixed a chair. You glued a chair under supervision. I'm updating my resume. He turned it upside down to inspect the repaired joint. Valerie thinks I took it to a professional. That reflects well on both of us. She asked why I cared so much about one damaged chair. What did you say? That she cared about a bowl. Paul ran a finger over the leg. It did not have the effect I intended. He had brought his SUV. Together, we loaded the chair into the back and wrapped it in an old blanket. I could use help getting it into June's house, he said. It weighs 12 pounds. I could use company while Valerie discovers where it's been. You want a witness. I want someone she's already mad at. That's honest. I've been married long enough to value efficiency. June's driveway was crowded when we arrived. Ross's SUV was parked near the garage, its rear compartment open. 2 suitcases stood beside Valerie's car. Paul stopped halfway out of his seat. What are those? I assume suitcases. We weren't leaving until next month. Apparently the luggage didn't hear. Valerie came out the front door carrying a box marked bedroom, missing. She saw me in the passenger seat and changed direction. What are you doing here? I'm aiding a furniture professional. Paul opened the rear hatch. Valerie stared at the chair. You repaired it. I repaired it, Paul said. With Martin. Under Martin's supervision. You went behind my back over a chair? I didn't know chair repair required spousal consent. It isn't about the chair. It rarely is. I lifted the chair out before their marriage widened to include the driveway. Diane appeared in the doorway. She looked tired. Her hair was tied at the nape of her neck, and June's blue bowl was tucked under one arm. You came, she said. Paul needed emotional support. I'm surrounded by comedians. Ross came through the garage carrying another suitcase. Martin, can I borrow your hand truck? No. Worth a shot. I set the chair in the dining room where the table had been. Without the other chairs around it, the repaired one looked stranded. Diane followed me inside. Valerie and Paul are leaving tomorrow, she said quietly. So I gathered. Paul didn't know. He does now. Ross is leaving Sunday. I looked toward the garage. They've been here 19 days, 18. They planned 6 weeks. I know what they planned. Her voice had an edge I recognized. It meant she had spent several hours being reasonable and was close to failing. Did something happen? I asked. Valerie says the atmosphere is hostile. Ross says he has meetings in Nashville he can't keep doing remotely. Did he recently discover his job? Diane did not smile. They said they'll come back in October for whatever is left. Will they? No. The answer came immediately. She set the bowl on the floor beneath the window. Sunlight passed through the blue glass and made a colored shape on the bare wood. Most of the basement is still full, she said. The garage hasn't been touched. Mom's bedroom is half done. Then stop. I can't leave it like this. You can leave it for a week. And then what? I don't know. She looked at me sharply. You're enjoying that phrase. I'm getting comfortable with it. I'm not. Valerie entered, followed by Paul. There you are, she said to Diane. I put the last of my boxes by the car. I'll need help fitting them. Why didn't you tell Paul you were leaving tomorrow? Valerie looked at her husband. I assumed he understood. I thought the suitcases were decorative, Paul said. I told you last night that I couldn't stay in this house another week. You said you wanted to go home. You say that in hotels too. This is different. Because Martin is in a different building? Valerie turned toward me. Why are you still here? I brought the chair. The chair is here. Excellent inventory. Diane stepped between us, not physically, but with her voice. Stop blaming Martin. Valerie stared at her. I'm not blaming him. I'm asking why a private family discussion has to include someone who's made it clear he doesn't want to be part of this. I didn't say that. You refuse to help unless Diane personally asks you, but you walk out of dinners. You rent an apartment to prove a point. I rented an apartment because yours was full. You see? Valerie said to Diane. Every answer is designed to make you feel guilty. His answers don't make me feel guilty, Diane said. What I did makes me feel guilty. The room went silent. Ross appeared in the doorway holding a desk lamp. Should I come back? No, Valerie said. Maybe you should hear this too. Ross looked alarmed by the invitation. Diane folded her arms. I asked Martin to leave so all of you could stay at our house without feeling uncomfortable. You needed space, Valerie said. I needed you to approve of me. That's not fair. No, it isn't. Diane's voice shook, but she continued. I packed his clothes. I told him to be gone before you arrived. Then I let everyone say he volunteered because it made me sound less cruel. Ross set the lamp on the floor. I thought he wanted the break. I know. Valerie's face had gone pale. You were falling apart, she said. You told me you couldn't breathe in your own marriage. I told you I felt invisible. Exactly. And you told me Martin was the reason. He is part of the reason. So am I. No one said you weren't. You said I had to choose myself. What you meant was that I had to choose you. Valerie stepped back as though Diane had struck her. That is an ugly thing to say. So was asking my husband to leave his house. You're making yourself the villain now because he won't come home unless you suffer enough. I saw Diane absorb that. Valerie knew exactly where to press. She had been touching the same vulnerable places since they shared a bedroom. That isn't what he said, Diane answered. It's what he's doing. Stop telling me what my husband means. Somebody has to. He certainly won't. Enough, Paul said. Valerie turned. You don't understand. I understand that we were invited into their home, and somehow our comfort required Martin not to be in it. You agreed he was difficult. I agree the man can make asking for a screwdriver feel like a moral failure. I didn't agree he should be evicted. I was not evicted, I said. Everybody looked at me. I was asked to leave with extremely thorough packing assistance. Ross made the mistake of laughing. Valerie pointed at him. This is serious. I know. It was just the packing assistance. Diane pressed her fingers to her forehead. Ross picked up the lamp again. I'm going to put this in the garage. No, Diane said. Stay. He stopped. She looked at Valerie and Ross. You said 6 weeks. You said we would finish this together. Valerie's anger softened slightly. I have a life at home. So do I. That's different. How? Valerie opened her mouth, then closed it. Ross shifted the lamp to his other hand. We've done a lot. Yes, Diane said. You chose what you wanted, moved it into boxes, and left me everything no one wants to decide about. That's not fair, he said. Neither is a dumpster. The company refunded the deposit. That isn't the point. I stayed near the window, trying not to become a verdict. Diane looked at me once. I gave her nothing but my attention. Valerie picked up her purse. Then don't, Diane said. Valerie waited for her sister to retreat. Diane did not. Paul, Valerie said, are you coming? He looked at the repaired chair. In a minute. Valerie left the room. The front door closed hard enough to rattle the glass in the empty china cabinet. Ross lifted the lamp. Garage? Diane nodded. When he was gone, she sat on the repaired chair. Paul watched it hold her weight. I fixed that, he said softly. Diane laughed once, then covered her face and cried. Paul stood awkwardly beside her. I took one step forward and stopped. She had asked me to do nothing for her. Then she had asked me to sit with her. I was still learning the difference. Would you stay? She asked without lifting her head. I looked toward the door Valerie had slammed. As what? Diane lowered her hands. My husband. You can't use that word only when the room is against you. Paul picked up his keys. I'm going to become unavailable, he said, and left us alone. Diane's face hardened. I wasn't using you. I know you didn't mean to. Then why do you make every mistake permanent? I don't. It feels permanent from here. I sat on the floor across from her because there was nowhere else to sit. I'll stay, I said. She looked at me. I won't settle the argument. I won't move the boxes. I won't tell you what to do. Then what will you do? Sit here. For several minutes, we listened to Valerie and Paul arguing near their car and Ross moving objects in the garage. Diane looked at the blue light cast by June's bowl. I sent away the person who stayed, she said, for people who arrived with luggage. I could have told her I had known that from the first afternoon. Instead, I sat beside her until the light moved off the floor. When we finally stood, she walked me to the porch. Our anniversary is Friday, she said. I know, 40 years. The number stood between us like another person. What are we going to do? She asked. Not pretend. She nodded, though it hurt her. All right, she said. Then don't bring flowers. I did not bring flowers. For 39 anniversaries, I had brought flowers. On our first, when we could barely afford groceries, I picked daisies from an empty lot beside the apartment complex and spent an hour removing tiny insects before giving them to Diane. The following year, I bought daisies from a florist. After that, the flowers changed, but the habit did not. Diane had told me not to bring them. I listened. At 9 Friday morning, Rebecca texted, "Happy anniversary," which seems like a strange thing to say right now, but not saying it seems worse. I wrote, "Thank you." She answered, "Big plans? No?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Not pretending and not trying aren't the same thing. I set the phone face down on the counter. At 10, Luke called. "Happy anniversary," he said. "Thank you. Is that what we're saying?" "Your sister used more words. I'm sure she did. Are you seeing Mom?" "I don't know." "Dad, it's 9:58 in the morning. Most married people know whether they're spending their anniversary together before breakfast. Most married people sleep in the same building." He exhaled. "Ross left last night. That was early. He said he had to be in Nashville for a meeting. He has meetings the way other people have weather. Always approaching, never his responsibility. Mom's alone. Your mother has been alone before." "Not like this." I knew what he meant. The house after guests was usually our favorite version of it. We would strip the beds, open the windows, and eat whatever food everyone else had left behind. Diane always complained about the extra laundry while smiling into the washing machine. "I'll call her," I said, "before your 50th. Goodbye, Luke." At 11:30, the store phone rang downstairs. Janice called up the staircase. "Martin, your wife is on line 2. I came down." "You gave Diane the store number?" "It's publicly available. You could have transferred her." "I don't like transferring." Walt looked over from the key machine. "She once disconnected the fire department." "They called back," Janice said. I picked up the phone beside the register. "Hi." Diane was quiet for a moment. "Your cell went straight to voicemail." I checked my pocket. The phone was off. I must have turned it off by accident. "You've owned that phone for 3 years. I'm still discovering features." Janice handed me a slip of paper that said, "I am not listening." She remained 18 inches away. "Happy anniversary," Diane said. "Happy anniversary." The words sounded both true and absurd. "I know I told you not to bring flowers. I haven't. I didn't tell you not to call. I was going to." "When?" "Before our 50th. Luke called you. He campaigns openly." Diane laughed, then stopped. "Would you come for dinner? To the house?" "Yes. Who else?" "No one." I heard the strain beneath the answer. "Ross left?" "At 11 last night. He packed for 3 hours and loaded the car in 9 minutes. That sounds like him?" I asked him to stay through Sunday. He said there was nothing more he could do. "What did you say?" "I told him the basement disagreed. Did that work?" "No. I'm sorry. So am I." The line crackled softly. 6:30? She asked. "I'll be there." I arrived empty-handed. The driveway was clear. No SUV, no additional car, no suitcases near the porch. Through the garage window, I could see boxes stacked against the far wall. Keep and Sell had begun to collapse into each other. Disgust remained untouched. Diane opened the front door before I knocked. She wore dark pants and the green blouse she had worn to Rebecca's wedding. I had always liked that blouse. I wondered whether she remembered. "Hi," she said. "Hi." Her eyes moved toward my hands. "No flowers," I said. "I told you not to." "I know. I didn't mean it. I know that too." She stepped aside. The house felt different. Not empty exactly, but exhaled. The guest room doors were open. The folding chair had been removed from the dining room, and my chair was back in its usual place. June's repaired chair stood against the wall. "You moved it back," I said. "What?" "My chair." Diane looked at the table. "Ross moved it. He didn't move it there." "No." In the kitchen, a pot simmered on the stove. Garlic bread sat beneath a towel. The counter held a salad, 2 wine glasses, and June's blue bowl filled with green beans. "You used the bowl," I said. "It's a bowl. Valerie may disagree. She called this morning. What did she want? To tell me she arrived safely. That was thoughtful. She also said she hoped I was satisfied. That was more familiar." Diane picked up the serving spoon and rearranged the green beans without improving them. She says I humiliated her in front of Paul. Paul has met her. "Martin?" "I'm sorry. No, that one helped." We carried dinner to the table. She had made spaghetti with meat sauce, the meal we ate on our first anniversary, because the restaurant where we planned to go had lost our reservation. The garlic bread was slightly burned at the edges, also historically accurate. "You remember," I said. "I remember most things." We sat across from each other rather than at opposite ends. For several minutes, we talked about the food. The sauce needed salt. The bread was not as burned as the original. Diane said the original had technically caught fire, and I reminded her that smoke was not flame. Then she said, "Paul called me. I put down my fork. He apologized for leaving early. That wasn't his decision. He said that too." Did Valerie know he called? I didn't ask. What about Ross? He texted a list of what he thinks is left. She reached for her phone, then stopped herself. It included miscellaneous basement items, she said. That narrows it down. And garage. Just the word, a concise man. Diane smiled, but her eyes remained tired. I keep looking at the clock, she said. At 9, I think Valerie will come downstairs and ask whether I bought decaf. At 11, I expect Ross to open the refrigerator and stare into it like the answer to something is in there. They've only been gone a day. I thought I'd be relieved. You can be relieved and hurt, I know. You usually tell me that. I was hoping it sounded wise. It sounds annoying. Then I got it right. We ate more. After dinner, Diane brought out a small grocery store cake. White frosting, blue border, Happy 40th written across the top. The woman at the bakery asked what theme I wanted, she said. What did you say? Survival. Did she laugh? No. She showed me the camouflage designs. Diane cut 2 uneven slices. I bought this yesterday, she said, before Ross left. Were you planning to invite him? I didn't know what I was planning. That seems to be spreading. She looked at the cake. I want you to come home. The sentence landed quietly. No tears, no Valerie beside her, no suitcase waiting near the door. I set down my fork. Why? Because this is your home. That was true when you asked me to leave. I made a mistake. Why was it a mistake? Her eyes sharpened. Do I have to pass an examination? No. It feels like there's a correct answer you've decided not to share. I'm asking what changed. Everything. Your family left. That isn't everything. It's the most visible thing. She pushed her cake away. I miss you. I miss you too. I hate waking up alone. I hate that your coffee cup is still in the cabinet. I hate that the bathroom faucet doesn't drip anymore, because every time I use it, I think about calling a plumber instead of calling you. That isn't a reason to come back. I know. Then what is? I love you. I looked at her. The answer should have opened the door. Instead, it showed me how much stood behind it. I love you too, I said. That didn't stop you from packing. Her face tightened. I was grieving. Valerie kept telling me I had spent my whole life disappearing inside this marriage, and I didn't know what was true anymore. There. What? That's why I can't come home. Because I was confused? Because you keep putting the decision in Valerie's hands. I just stood up to her. Yes. And now you're explaining that she made you send me away. She pressured me. I believe you. But pressure doesn't pack a suitcase. Diane stood and carried both cake plates to the kitchen. I followed, then stopped myself before reaching for the faucet. She gripped the edge of the sink. What do you want me to say? That you chose it. I said I made a mistake. That isn't the same. She turned. Fine, I chose it. I chose my brother and sister because I was afraid if I disappointed them, they would leave. I knew you would stay. The honesty in it stripped away my next defense. And I used that, she continued. I counted on you loving me enough to let me hurt you without making me pay for it. I sat at the kitchen table. Diane wiped her face. But you're not innocent, she said. I know. You decided what I could handle. You let me believe Mom needed me less than she did. You fixed every problem before I could even name it, then acted surprised when I stopped knowing what I wanted from you. I know. You don't get to make me confess while you sit there saying you know. You're right. Stop agreeing. I don't know what the alternative is. Tell me why you did it. I looked at the blue bowl. Because being useful felt safer than being loved. Diane's anger changed. I continued before I could retreat. If I fixed the faucet didn't reject me. If I drove your mother, she thanked me or complained, but either way, I knew why I was there. When you were unhappy, I didn't know whether I could help. So I found something I could do and called it love. It was love, not all of it. She sat across from me. The kitchen clock moved through several seconds. I'm not coming home tonight, I said. Diane closed her eyes. I expected that. No, you didn't. No, I want to see you. I want us to talk without waiting until something breaks. How? Dinner once a week? Coffee? Maybe we find someone who knows how to keep us from turning every conversation into a repair estimate. A counselor, if you want. Do you? Yes. That answer cost me more than renting the apartment. Diane nodded slowly. All right. We cleaned the kitchen together. I washed, she dried. Neither of us commented on the old arrangement returning so easily. At the door, she handed me a container of spaghetti and the larger remaining piece of cake. "Anniversary leftovers," she said. "Very romantic. I could put a candle in the meat sauce. Save something for 41. We stood beneath the porch light. Then Diane stepped forward and put her arms around me. For a moment, mine remained at my sides. I felt her notice. I held her. She pressed her face into my shoulder, and I rested my cheek against her hair. The embrace was familiar enough to hurt in places anger had missed. "Happy anniversary," she whispered. "Happy anniversary." When I let go, she did not ask again. I walked to my truck carrying spaghetti and cake, but no flowers. She stayed on the porch until I drove away. For the first time since I left, neither of us pretended that love alone was enough to bring me back. 3 days after our anniversary, Diane and I sat in a room with 2 identical gray chairs angled toward a woman named Mara Bennett. Mara was about 50, with silver bracelets that made a small sound whenever she wrote. Her office contained a box of tissues, a water fountain, and one stubborn plant leaning toward a window that faced a brick wall. "Whose idea was counseling?" she asked. Diane pointed at me. I pointed at myself. Mara looked between us. "Good. We've established one area of agreement." Diane laughed. I did not. "Martin believes I threw him out," she said. "You packed my suitcase. I'm telling her what you believe." "It isn't a belief." Marcy at the motel saw the suitcase. "Who's Marcy?" "The desk clerk." "You discussed our marriage with a desk clerk?" She asked if I wanted one night or two. Mara held up one hand. Her bracelets chimed. "I suspect the suitcase is important." "Thank you," I said. "It's important to you," she clarified. "I don't know what it means yet." That irritated me, which was probably healthy. Diane sat back. "It means I made him leave." "What did it mean to you at the time?" Mara asked. Diane looked toward the window. "I wanted him to refuse." I turned to her. "You've said that before, but I still don't understand it. I wanted proof that losing me frightened you. You didn't ask whether I was frightened. You asked me to be gone before your family arrived." "I know." "What did you expect? That I'd block the door?" I didn't think that far. I did. I imagined Valerie calling the police because I wouldn't leave my own house. Valerie would not have called the police. She once called animal control because a neighbor's cat looked arrogant. That cat attacked her screen. Mara's pen stopped. "Let's stay with the door," she said. I did not care for the door. Still, we stayed with it. I told Diane that refusing to leave had seemed like aggression, not love. She told me that leaving calmly had felt like relief, not pain. I said I had been trying to keep the scene from becoming ugly. She said I had spent years defining ugliness as any emotion I could not control. At the end of 50 minutes, Mara asked how we felt. "Worse," I said. "Exhausted," Diane said. Mara nodded. "That's not unusual. It should be in the brochure," I told her. We returned the following week. At our 3rd appointment, I admitted that when Diane cried, my first thought was usually to stop it. "Why?" Mara asked. "Because she's hurt. That doesn't answer why you need it to stop." I looked at Diane. She was waiting without rescuing me. Because if she stops crying, I can believe I helped. And if she continues... I failed. Diane's face softened. Mara asked, "What if her sadness isn't a test?" I disliked her for that question almost as much as I disliked myself for needing it. The apartment above Hanley's became the place where our family learned to sit too close together. Rebecca and Dana came for dinner one Sunday with Luke. There were only 3 usable chairs, so I borrowed 2 folding ones from Walt. Janice sent up a pan of baked beans nobody had requested. "They go with groups," she said. "We're having pasta. They go with conflict too." Dana brought garlic bread. Luke brought wine. Rebecca brought nothing because she said she had already furnished half the apartment. We ate with our knees nearly touching beneath the table. Luke told Diane about the woman he had been seeing. Her name was Camille. She designed commercial lighting, and she had declined 3 invitations to meet the entire family at once. "I like her already," Diane said. "You haven't met her. She has boundaries." Luke pointed his fork at me. "That word has ruined my life." It was the first meal since I left where no one tried to force normality into the room. Diane and I did not pretend she would stay after dessert. Rebecca did not watch us constantly. Dana told a story about accidentally attending the wrong retirement party and realizing it only after giving a speech. When everyone left, Diane helped me wash the dishes. "Do you want me to stay?" she asked. The answer was yes. The answer I gave was, not tonight. She nodded, dried the last plate, and went home. I stood at the top of the metal stairs until her taillights disappeared. There was no single moment when separation stopped feeling like an emergency and became a life we had to choose around. My 1-month rental became 3. Summer shirts in the brown suitcase were replaced by sweaters. Walt began referring to the upstairs apartment as Martin's department, and Janice put my name on a mailbox without asking. Diane continued clearing June's house. She did not ask me to move the sideboard. She hired 2 men with a truck and then complained that they scratched the wall. She went through the basement one shelf at a time, sometimes with Rebecca, sometimes alone. When she found something she wanted to show me, she brought it to dinner instead of using it as a reason for me to come fix something. One evening, she brought June's calendar. I almost threw it away, she said. I looked at the circled M's. What changed your mind? I'm not sure. Unsure is dangerous, she smiled. Mom wrote everybody down, she said. You were right. That doesn't mean every circle was equal. No. She took the calendar home again. We never framed it or treated it as evidence. It was paper June had used to remember who was coming. Its importance was that Diane and I could finally look at the same thing without competing over what it proved. In December, Hanley's heat began reaching the apartment in unpredictable bursts. At night, I slept with the window cracked while snow collected on the metal stairs. Walt claimed the boiler had personality. It has rust, I said. That too. A small cottage became available 6 blocks away near the river. It had 1 bedroom, a porch wide enough for 2 chairs, and a kitchen built before people expected to open a refrigerator and dishwasher at the same time. I rented it. Diane helped me move, though I did not ask. She carried the Lake Erie photograph herself and placed it on the bedroom dresser. You keep putting this out, she said. You keep noticing. The cottage was not our house, and I stopped apologizing for liking it. I liked the quiet. I liked deciding when people visited. I liked the narrow porch in the mornings and the sycamore tree that dropped bark across the yard in curled pieces. I hated sleeping alone. Both things were true. By spring, June's house was nearly empty. The remaining objects had been divided through a long chain of phone calls, photographs, and arguments. Ross took the hotel soap. Valerie kept several pieces of furniture. Diane kept the wooden angel, the blue bowl, and the card table that had never mattered until someone told her it shouldn't. Valerie spoke to Diane regularly, but their calls were shorter. Neither mentioned me if they could avoid it. Then Valerie announced that she and Paul were coming in April to collect the last of her boxes. She assumed they would stay at our house. Ross planned to drive up from Nashville and use the den. Diane told them they needed to discuss that in person. They'll already be here in person, I said when she told me. I know. Then the lodging decision will have urgency. I know. Why not tell them now? Because I spent my whole life giving them bad news over the phone, so I wouldn't have to see their faces. She looked at me across the cottage kitchen. I want to see their faces. Valerie and Paul arrived on a Thursday afternoon. Ross came 2 hours later. Diane asked me to be at the house at 6. Why? I said. Because this concerns you. You don't need me there to set a boundary. No. Then why? She folded and unfolded the edge of a dish towel. Because the lie was told with you absent. I don't want to tell the truth the same way. At 6, I entered through the front door. Valerie sat on the sofa. Paul stood near the fireplace. Ross had already removed his shoes and placed them directly in the center of the hallway. Diane remained standing. Valerie looked at me. I didn't realize this was going to be an ambush. It isn't, Diane said. It feels organized. Most things do when Martin is present. I sat in the chair beside the window. Diane did not sit. I need to tell you what's going to happen while you're here, she said. You're welcome to visit the house. You cannot stay here. Ross looked around. Why? Because this is Martin's home too. Valerie stared at her sister. He doesn't live here. That was my choice, not his. We know what happened. No. You know the version I let you believe. Valerie's jaw tightened. We went through this at Mom's. I went through part of it. Diane gripped the back of my empty dining chair. I asked Martin to leave before all of you arrived. He did not offer. He did not agree. I packed his suitcase because I knew if I waited to say it to his face, I might lose my nerve. Ross looked at me. I said nothing. Diane continued. I let you toast my new beginning. I let Luke believe his father had chosen to leave. I let everyone treat Martin's absence like a gift he gave us. It wasn't. It was something I took. Valerie stood. You were unhappy. Yes. You felt erased. Yes. I was trying to protect you. I know. Then why are you talking as if I broke up your marriage? You didn't. I did. The answer removed every place Valerie might have set the blame. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Ross said, I can stay at a hotel. Valerie looked at him. What? There are hotels. Paul sat down, visibly relieved that lodging had returned to its practical form. Valerie remained standing. So, I'm not welcome in my sister's home. You are welcome, Diane said. You're not entitled to displace my husband. He chose not to come back. He chose not to pretend what I did was harmless. Valerie's eyes moved to me. This is what you wanted. No, I said. I wanted my wife not to ask me to leave. You've made her pay for months. Diane stepped forward. Stop! Valerie looked at her. He did not make me correct you. He did not make me say any of this. And he does not owe me a return because I finally learned how to tell the truth. Valerie's face crumpled so quickly that she turned away. If this is how you feel, she said, maybe I shouldn't visit at all. The old threat entered the room. I could see Diane recognize it. Withdrawal had always been Valerie's final argument. Diane's hands trembled. I hope you visit, she said, but if the only choices are giving you what you want or losing you, I won't keep calling that closeness. Paul closed his eyes briefly. Ross studied his socks. Valerie picked up her purse and walked outside. Paul waited a moment, then followed. He paused beside Diane and touched her shoulder. I'll call with the hotel, he said. Ross put his shoes on. For what it's worth, he told me. I'm sorry I sat in your chair. Of all the things he might have apologized for, that was the one he had understood. Thank you, I said. After he left, the house became very quiet. Diane sat on the sofa. Her hands were still shaking. I took the chair beside her. Did I do it right? She asked. It wasn't a test, I know. She leaned back and closed her eyes. I wanted you to hear me. I did. She opened her eyes again. I'm not going to ask you to come home. Thank you. That sounds terrible. It doesn't. She reached for my hand. This time, I gave it to her before she had to find it. We sat in the living room until the light outside began to fade. Diane's hand stayed in mine. She did not ask what the gesture meant, and I did not withdraw it before she could. Eventually, she said, They're probably at a hotel by now. Ross may still be in the driveway. He took his shoes. That suggests commitment. She smiled. Valerie did not return that evening. Paul called to say they had found rooms near the highway. He sounded apologetic about the hotel, the argument, and possibly his entire marriage. Ross stayed at the same place, though he claimed it was because the rates were reasonable. The following morning, the three of them went to June's house. Diane joined them. I did not. For years, I had assumed love meant inserting myself wherever I might prevent pain. That day, I drank coffee on my cottage porch and let 4 adults have a difficult morning without me. Diane came by after lunch. She did not get out of her car at first. I walked down the path, but stopped before opening her door. How did it go? Ross packed the hotel soap with his other hotel soap. Consistency matters. Paul took Mom's desk. He wanted that? No. Valerie wanted it. But she said Paul wanted it, so she wouldn't have to admit she did. Marriage is efficient. Diane turned off the engine. Valerie barely spoke to me. I'm sorry. She said I chose you over my family. What did you say? That you are my family. The answer hurt in a different way than the others had. Diane looked toward the cottage. Can I come in? Yes. She sat in the green chair I had bought from a second-hand store to replace the wheezing one above Hanley's. The new chair was blue, comfortable, and ugly in a more deliberate way. Did you do all right last night? She asked. I watched television. What? I don't remember. You always remember. I was lonely. Her eyes shifted to me. There it was, an ordinary truth, spoken before anyone had to drag it from me. I almost called, I said. Then I decided you had enough. You decided for me again. I did. Call next time. All right. She came over to the sofa and rested her head against my shoulder. We sat that way until she needed to return to June's house. Valerie left Ohio without saying goodbye to me. Ross stopped by the cottage first. He stood on the porch holding the small wooden desk lamp he had carried through June's house during the argument. I took this, he said. I see that. I don't want it. That sounds like a problem between you and the lamp. He held it out. Mom used it beside her chair. Diane should have it. Give it to her. She'll say I'm only doing it because I feel guilty. Are you? Yes. Then she'll be right. Ross lowered the lamp. You never make the easy answer easy. You could keep it. He looked at the brass base and faded shade. Mom used to turn it on before she called me. I waited. She'd sit there and ask about work, he said. I thought she liked hearing about my work. She liked hearing your voice. I know that now. He carried the lamp back to his SUV. Before leaving, he said, I was angry at you because Mom talked about you so much near the end. I know. You could have told me to come more. You would have resented me. I resent you anyway. That saved time. He laughed, then surprised me by stepping forward and hugging me. Ross had always hugged like someone checking a jacket for weapons. This one lasted long enough to be intentional. He gave the lamp to Diane before driving south. Valerie did not call her sister for 3 weeks. At our next appointment, Mara asked Diane how that felt. Like I'm 10 years old, she said. I keep thinking if I find the right apology, Valerie will let me back into the room. Do you owe her one? I hurt her. That wasn't the question. Diane looked at me. I don't owe her an apology for making her stay at a hotel. No, I said. Mara's bracelets moved. Did you ask Martin for confirmation because you wanted his opinion, or because you wanted permission? Diane frowned. You're very irritating. I hear that from couples who return. Diane looked at me again. I wanted confirmation. I said, you don't need it. I know, I still wanted it. That seemed reasonable. Wanting reassurance was not the same as surrendering a decision. I had spent years confusing independence with silence. Valerie eventually called about the final electric bill at June's house. She and Diane discussed the amount, then the weather, then Paul's back. Neither apologized. They spoke for 12 minutes. The next week, they spoke for 20. Their relationship did not return to what it had been. Diane grieved that too. She stopped treating every distance as an emergency, and Valerie gradually discovered that a boundary was not a locked door. It was simply a door she did not control. The garage at our house remained full for another month. Diane hired help for the largest furniture, asked Rebecca to sort the kitchen boxes, and made Ross participate by video while she held up objects one at a time. When he became impatient, she ended the call instead of doing his share for him. One Saturday, she asked me to come over. She led me through the mudroom and opened the garage door. My workbench stood against the west wall where it belonged. The rolling tool cabinet was back beside it. The keep and sell boxes were gone. One discuss box remained in the corner. You left that one, I said. I decided uncertainty isn't fatal. That's reckless. She touched the edge of the workbench. I didn't throw anything away. I would have survived if you had. I wasn't sure. Neither am I. She looked around the garage. I want you to know there's room for you. I understood what it had cost her to say it without adding a request. Thank you. You're not coming back yet. It was not a question. No. She nodded. Her disappointment was visible, but she did not turn it into pressure. Do you want to stay for dinner? Yes. She had made soup. There was nothing ceremonial about it. We ate at the kitchen table, and afterward I fixed nothing. That became our new pattern, not a straight road home, but a series of ordinary invitations. Sometimes Diane ate at the cottage. Sometimes I went to the house. We met for coffee, took walks near the river, and continued sitting in Mara's gray chairs until the office plant finally gave up and was replaced by one made of plastic. I learned to tell Diane when I wanted her company before loneliness turned into resentment. She learned not to answer every painful statement with a defense. When she said, I miss waking up beside you, I stopped replying that she had asked me to leave. It was true, but truth used at the wrong moment could become another form of hiding. When I said, I'm afraid to come back and disappear into the old life, she did not promise that everything would be different. She asked what disappearing looked like to me. I told her. It looked like being called only when something broke. It looked like everybody assuming I would carry the heavy end. It looked like doing so much for the people I loved that I never had to risk asking whether they loved me when I was doing nothing. Diane listened. Her answer came a week later. It looks like someone knowing every practical thing about me and still not asking what I feel, she said. It looks like having a husband everyone envies because he never yells, while wondering whether I could vanish inside the marriage without making enough noise for him to notice. I listened too. Rebecca stopped calling every morning to check whether one of us had made a reckless decision overnight. Luke brought Camille to dinner at the cottage, but only after making us promise not to ask where the relationship was going. Diane asked Camille 3 questions about commercial lighting and none about marriage. Luke noticed. On Sundays, the cottage table was too small and the kitchen became crowded. Dana brought folding chairs. Rebecca complained about the lack of counter space. Luke cooked once and used every pan I owned. After they left, Diane and I washed dishes together. Those evenings made it harder for her to go home. They also made it possible. Summer settled over the river. The sycamore filled the yard with shade, and the porch boards warmed beneath my bare feet. I repaired the loose railing because I wanted it repaired, not because anyone had asked. When I needed help holding a replacement board in place, I called Luke instead of creating a complicated system of clamps to avoid bothering him. He arrived with Camille and 2 coffees. "You could have done this alone," he said. Yes. The word pleased him more than it should have. In August, Diane and I spent an afternoon at Lake Erie. We found the stretch of water where the old photograph had been taken, though the shoreline had changed and neither of us could agree which direction we had faced. Diane wore a yellow sweater despite the heat, because she thought it would be funny. "It is funny," I told her. "You haven't laughed. I'm laughing internally. Move your face." We asked a stranger to take our photograph. "Make sure you get the water," Diane said. The stranger included our feet. On the drive home, Diane rested her hand on the console between us. I placed mine over it. She did not ask whether I was ready to move home. I did not ask why she wasn't asking. Our 41st anniversary fell on a Saturday. We agreed to have dinner at the cottage. Nothing elaborate. I bought steaks and potatoes. Diane offered to bring dessert. At 4 in the afternoon, a car door closed outside. I was in the kitchen cutting mushrooms. I wiped my hands and went to the front window. Diane stood beside her car with the brown suitcase. The bad wheel was still bad. She pulled it 2 feet, watched it twist sideways, then lifted the suitcase by the handle and carried it up the path herself. A bouquet of daisies rested across the top. I opened the door before she knocked. She stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. "Those are flowers," I said. "I checked them for insects." That was the romantic part. I thought so. My eyes moved to the suitcase. Diane adjusted her grip. "I'm not asking you to come home." "All right. I'm asking whether I can stay here for the weekend." She looked nervous. My wife of 41 years stood outside my small cottage like a guest who understood that an invitation could not be assumed. "What did you pack?" I asked. "My own medication." "That's encouraging. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, a toothbrush, and the yellow sweater. It's going to be 80 degrees. "I know. How long is just the weekend?" "Until Sunday evening, unless you want me to leave sooner, and if I don't." "We talk about next weekend." I looked at the suitcase again. The first time it had stood beside a door, it contained everything Diane thought I would need to be absent from her life. This one contained only what she had chosen for herself. "Why do you want to stay?" I asked. She took a breath. "Because I want to know who you are when you're not fixing something for me, and I want you to know who I am when I'm not asking someone else for permission." The daisies shifted against the suitcase. "I can't promise I'm ready to move back," I said. "I'm not asking for a promise. I may never want the marriage we had. Neither do I." The answer came without fear. I stepped aside. Diane climbed the porch steps. When she reached me, she tilted the suitcase slightly in my direction, out of 40 years of habit, then caught herself. "I've got it," she said. "I know." She carried it through the doorway. I took the flowers. While she unpacked, I put the daisies in a pitcher because the cottage had no vase. The new Lake Erie photograph stood beside the old one on the dresser. In the first, we were young, sunburned, and missing our feet. In the second, we were older, fully in the frame, and no longer pretending the water behind us could explain where we were going. Diane came into the kitchen and looked at the mushrooms. "Do you need help?" "Yes," I said. "With what?" I handed her a knife and moved the cutting board so we could stand beside each other. For once, neither of us mistook the question for an obligation. Her suitcase remained in the bedroom, unpacked but not hidden. Mine was in the hall closet, the bad wheel facing the wall. We cooked dinner in the narrow kitchen while the daisies opened between us.